Hey listeners, tonight we're setting sail for the roughest waters history has to offer, the world of Greek mythology. Specifically, we're tracking a hero who was way too smart for his own good, Odysseus. Not the hulking, uncomplicated beef and brawn type of hero. I mean the kind who survived not by his bicep size, but by his brilliant, infuriatingly cunning brain, bobbing around the world's oceans for 10 extra years in a rickety death trap, all because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. So before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow, it's always 2 a.m. somewhere. Now dim those lights, switch on a fan for that soft white noise, get comfortable, and maybe tuck your feet in so the imaginary rats can't nibble your toes. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be cursed by a god who controls the entire ocean? Is it just a lot of rain? Or is it more like constantly having a bad Wi-Fi signal where every download takes 10 years? Was Odysseus's wife Penelope really happy to see him after 2 decades? Or was she just a little annoyed that he showed up looking like a homeless tourist after she'd finally achieved a nice, predictable routine? And what exactly is the tax form for accepting immortality from a sea nymph? Do you still have to pay capital gains? We're about to find out as we dive deep into the ultimate story of getting absolutely destroyed by bad luck, divine vengeance, and occasionally your own idiot crew. Congratulations. You've just woken up 20 years after the Trojan War should have ended, and you're stuck sailing with the one guy the sea gods genuinely hate. Get comfortable, because it's going to be a long voyage. Chapter 1. Ithaca's Flavors of Oddity, the Home of a Hero. Hey guys, welcome back to this cozy nook of mildly interesting history, the place where sleep meets the absurdity of life in the ancient world. Tonight, we're drifting off to a land where olive trees whisper and the sun refuses to set on a comedic kingdom, where we meet the truly cunning king Odysseus of Ithaca. Spoiler alert, there's no actual kingly napping going on here. Now, imagine a rugged island in the Ionian Sea, where rocky hills meet vibrant olive groves like they're in a particularly intense arm-wrestling match. Can't you just smell the salty sea breeze mixed with ripe olives? It's basically like your neighbor's fancy Mediterranean restaurant, if they'd forgotten the cooking part and just left the tables outside for seagulls to enjoy. And, speaking of funny neighbors, aren't they just the best when they're organizing outdoor barbecues and forgetting to invite you? Classic. But here's our burning question. What does it truly feel like to be Odysseus? Did he ever wake up feeling like he accidentally spilled grape juice on the throne? What do you suppose a king's pajama wear looks like? Would it be a comfy toga with an unflattering waistband, or something so ridiculous that even the palace mice wouldn't dare judge? And has anyone ever wondered what snacks the ancient Greek hero indulged in during late-night philosophical pondering? Dates or olives? I mean, one pays homage to the gods, while the other pays homage to your highly questionable snack choices at the midnight hour. Love daydreaming? Well, guess what? You've just woken up in the grand yet delightfully awkward kingdom of Ithaca, around 1200 BCE, a time when washing your toga was considered optional, with bonuses for authenticity. As you pull back the curtains made from goat hide, sunlight floods in, bathing your modest abode in golden hues that don't quite mask the scent of slightly overripe figs hanging out in the corner. Yes, that's right. A royal aroma indeed. Here you are, a contemporary dreamer, suddenly faced with life as a rugged hero surrounded by peasants, engaging in possibly questionable activities, like attempting to weave their own sandals out of seaweed while trying not to lose their minds. The clattering of sandals against rocky paths greets you like a less than welcome alarm clock, and the shrill cries of goats vying for attention sound alarmingly similar to your neighbor's favorite morning ringtone. So, let's take a moment here and ponder. How many heroic exploits can a king manage in a land where finding an extra cup of wine feels akin to unearthing buried treasure? Or how about the complex skill of dealing with dodgy queuing at the local marketplace? Yes, truly a life of high-stakes drama, and it's enough to make any hero contemplate napping on a sun-warmed boulder instead. Now, let's get back to our intrepid Odysseus. He's not just a man who fought in wars and faced gods. Oh no. He's also the guy who probably overslept his royal meetings because the bed was too cozy. In fact, picture this. His throne room is filled with well-wishers who casually stop by to discuss mundane matters. "Hey, Odysseus, got any strategies for avoiding chores today? Because my goats have decided they're too fine for grazing and are holed up on my roof." And let's face it, the gods had their priorities all mixed up. While mortals were busy coordinating laundry battles, you'd think that Olympus could at least lend a hand with some excellent gardening tips. No, sir. Instead, they were just tossing sass and chaos like a toddler with a bag of peas, completely unpredictable and a little alarming. You would hear whispers among the commoners about the epic tales of war that sound just a tad exaggerated. You know, the one where he outsmarted the Cyclops with nothing but a pun and an exquisite slice of cheese. Oh yes, the irony of a hero who battles monsters yet can't seem to save himself from slipping on his own bedtime snack. And here's a kicker. Odysseus often had to deal with peculiar weather patterns. Ever find yourself caught in a rainstorm without an umbrella? Well, try that while navigating between armies of confused harpies. You'd assume the ancient forecasters were either throwing rocks or consulting coffee grounds for their forecasts, which could explain why bad weather seemed to come at the most inopportune moments, like right before dinner. You know, like a really bad dinner guest with terrible timing. But somehow, through all the chaos of gods throwing tantrums and kingdoms managing unexpected goat infestations, our King Odysseus survives. Picture him, lounging on his throne, mumbling, "Sure, I lost a ship to Poseidon, but at least I didn't have to make my own lunch," while thinking of the lovely baklava waiting just outside the palace gates. So settle in, dear dreamer. Let the charming chaos of ancient Ithaca lull you to sleep like a gentle wave crashing upon the rocky shores. And who knows, maybe your dreams will be filled with olive-laden treasures and oddly interpreted prophecies. Or perhaps, at the very least, you'll find joy in the ridiculous calamity of our hero Odysseus, who somehow managed to conquer the gods and nap through the rest. Good night, gentle listener, and may your dreams be as delightfully absurd as life on Ithaca. Chapter 2. Odysseus and the Art of Not Dying. Hey guys, welcome back to the bedtime tales of ancient blunders and heroic naps. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into the deliciously chaotic world of Odysseus, the man who took cleverness and strategy to levels usually reserved for your uncle during family game night. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well for everyone, except the guy who knows how to ignore a deity's tantrum while snoring happily. So picture this. It's around 1200 BCE, a time when a bad hair day meant you'd gotten caught in a windstorm, and your morning coffee was brewed from tepid goat milk. And here you are, strutting through an ancient world filled with gods who are attached to their power like they're holding on to their favorite sweater. Trust me, you'll want to avoid pulling at those threads. As you settle into your plush, not at all hay-stuffed bed blanket made from the finest goat hair around, let me ask you, did Odysseus ever take a break from battling mythical creatures just to chill out with a snack? Perhaps he pondered over meals like, could I sweet-talk a cyclops into passing the hummus? Or, thinking aloud, why would I ever choose a straightforward route when I could detour through a whirlpool? Honestly, it's like he was playing life on hard mode, while the other heroes were casually selecting easy and getting roasted marshmallows. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the whirlwind of Odysseus's life, straddling a delicate line between heroic escapades and questionable life choices. You focus the sunlight filtering through that Roman-style arch with a hint of goat dung on the floor. Ah, the quintessential experience of a 12th century Aegean lifestyle. Your morning routine? Let's just say it's less rise and shine, and more rise and dodge the occasional wandering sheep. Now let's talk about breakfast, shall we? Imagine Odysseus strapping on his armor before breakfast and musing, is this more dangerous than what awaits me later? You can almost hear the gods chuckling as they watch their mortal from above, wondering what ridiculous pitfall he's bound to tumble into next. You'd think he'd take a sizzling fry-up of bacon as an omen, but no. He'd just plan a detailed route to avoid all those mythical monsters who've recently joined restrictive diets. Lean, green, and mean. That's their motto. How did Odysseus survive the gods' wrath? Well, his secret? A tad more than just luck, with an unhealthy dose of wit. It's as if he sat down with Athena and said, listen, I'll give this whole hero life a go, but how do I not end up as shark bait? She probably handed him a list titled Strategies for Outsmarting Creatures with One Eye, and shrugged, just wing it, mate. And let's be honest, if you thought making it through a mundane workday was tough, Odysseus gets caught in whirlwinds stirred up by divine bickering. Zeus was feeling cranky after a long night on the celestial wine. And suddenly Odysseus is stuck fighting off sirens, as if he's auditioning for some bizarre aquatic reality show. So, tell us, what's your strategy for surviving this horde of singing fish women? Every day in Odysseus's life was remarkably like one of those fads where people try to make workouts exciting. Except in his case, it involved dodging enchanted arrows from angry gods. True life tip. If you ever want to sign up for an annual Avoid Divine Retribution marathon, just imagine packing your bags next to the magical whirlpools and waiting for the festivities to commence. Bonus points for the amount of hubris it takes to travel through a sea full of sirens. And what of his brave sailors, you ask? Let's just say they're in for a treat, too. 1 minute they're high-fiving over a successful battle, and the next they're like, Did we really just eat that weird flower? Dreadful magic ensues, as sailors doze off only to discover that they've awakened as unfortunate livestock. Talk about taking one for the team. It's almost like they signed a contract promising they'd turn into food if they were particularly bad at following instructions. As Odysseus navigates through monsters and a buffet of unthinkable challenges, it's hard not to admire his homeward spirit. Even when he stumbles into one of the worst corporate team-building events ever held. Yes, today we'll be scaling mountains, shoving cyclops, and achieving our group synergy through shouting very loudly. All aboard? So, here you lie, comfortably ensconced in your own safe bed, possibly dreaming of Odysseus battling it out with creatures who've never understood personal space. As the dim light quietly creeps into your consciousness, and the time ticks softly by, consider this comforting irony. Our cunning hero doesn't always have it easy, but he survives, time and again, through wit, and maybe a little fishing for compliments from his more glamorous, godly friends. Rest easy, dear dreamer. May your battles be minimal, your snacks plentiful, and your evening tales woven with as much laughter as an ancient hero's absurd mishaps tucked comfortably beneath the stars. Good night, and pleasant dreams of epic voyages, clever plots, and possibly even an enchanted olive grove or two. Chapter 3. Penelope and the Eternal Weave. Hey guys, welcome back to the sleepy saga of epic adventures and baffling decisions. Tonight, we're zooming in on Penelope, the woman who didn't just wait for her husband to return, she turned waiting into an Olympic sport. Imagine snagging a medal for best looming while men brew trouble, all while munching cold leftovers from last week's feast. Spoiler alert, she didn't have Instagram to help keep track of all those long, lonely years. So, you might want to grab your most luxurious goat hair blanket and snuggle in, because we're about to step into a world where phones didn't exist, and the only way to check your email was by sending a pigeon that had probably been to a dozen taverns on the way. Ever found a sock lost in the laundry? Yeah, try finding your husband who's off tussling with cyclopes instead. Now, let's take a moment to ponder. How many looms did it take to keep a wife entertained while waiting for a spouse who had a knack for turning a 10-day journey into a full-blown saga? And what's the metaphorical equivalent of "we need to talk" in ancient Greece? Maybe, return safely before I turn this yarn into something suitable for my spinsterhood. Congratulations! You've just woken up in the bustling kingdom of Ithaca around 1200 BCE, where the sun is shining, the olives are ripe for pickin', and the challenges of daily life could make even the most patient person throw their loom out the window. Imagine Penelope, seated at her loom, weaving what can only be described as the ancient version of Netflix and chill, except Instead of snuggling up with popcorn, she's grappling with the existential dread of progressing from mighty warrior to unnoticed domestic drudge. In her mind, she's shouting, "I clearly married the wrong hero! Someone alert the gods! Don't I deserve a break from all this weaving?" As she expertly manipulates the threads, there's a sort of rhythm to her handiwork, like a gentle wave crashing against the shore. Time, infinity, stitch, repeat. This wasn't just any craft project. It was Penelope's 5,000-thread-long "Hurry Home, Odysseus" panic blanket. Unfortunately, no one told her that instead of finishing a scarf, she just invented the "very long story" category of her own personal epic. But let's not forget the real obstacle at hand, the suitors lingering in her hall, as uninvited as that awkward relative who insists on telling the same story 24 times at family gatherings. "Oh, what's that? Odysseus isn't returning yet? Well, we're here, and someone's got to eat all these delicious olives with a side of your never-ending tragedy." I can see them now, snapping fingers to the beat of Penelope's weaving as they gaze longingly at her, like no one has ever gazed at a woolly goat. Imagine Penelope, day after day, expertly dodging their advances with all the finesse of someone trying to politely decline a lukewarm cup of goat's milk coffee that's been sitting out for 3 weeks. "Oh yes, I would love to marry you, but alas, my husband, the crafty hero, is probably stuck in yet another sticky situation, like absolutely every guy who tries to fix plumbing without reading the manual. I must be loyal. Isn't that charming?" And let's not overlook the enchanting characteristics of the loom itself, often compared to those charming, musty gym mats from your childhood. Weaving wasn't just a hobby. It was like her own personal escape room. Need to clear your thoughts? Just lose yourself in a quick double loop, and suddenly your existential dread unwinds a little more with each thread. Now picture this. Every night she reveals her master plan to the gods above, hoping for a cosmic nudge. "Dear Athena, look at my handiwork. Can't you see I deserve a better sequel?" Perhaps Penelope triumphs over incredibly uncomfortable couch guests. But alas, often the gods are far too busy squabbling over who gets to invent the next terrible hairstyle or plot twist to pay her any mind. Oh, how long could one woman wait? Well, Penelope had mastered the delicate art of keeping hope alive. It's like trying to hold on to your New Year's resolution while chocolate donuts beckon, or telling yourself you'll only scroll for 5 minutes when half the day melts away. So, as you tuck yourself in, think of our dear Penelope, an industrious weaver, an ingenious meditator, and perhaps the most patient snacks sharer in the history of life in Ithaca. May her story comfort you like a warm cup of ancient tea as you drift into a slumber full of clever adventures. Anticipate your own battles with waiting at the doorstep, and may your dreams be just as creatively spun, minus the suitors and overflowing plates of olives. Good night, dear dreamer. May your nights be filled with warmth and laughter, as you echo Penelope's subtle strength in moments of solitude and suspense. Chapter 4. The Mad Farmer of Ithaca. Hey guys, welcome back to our ongoing exploration of ancient chaos and questionable decisions. Tonight, we take a detour into the wild world of Odysseus, often flagged as the original king of bold moves and awkward excuses. Imagine a time when the most dramatic thing you could do wasn't ghosting your friends, but rather pretending to be completely bonkers to dodge a war. So picture this. You're a dude, let's call him Odysseus, facing a gathering storm of epic proportions. Specifically, a batch of Greeks itching for a good old-fashioned brawl over a pretty face. Thanks, Helen. What's a cunning hero to do? Why, he decides to unleash the not-so-classy act of feigned madness. Sure, a classic choice. You know, like posting, "I've moved to the mountains to live with bears" on your social media to avoid that awkward brunch with your relatives. But don't grab your popcorn just yet, because tonight's tale will be about a mix of absurd farming tactics and outdated animal husbandry right out of your least favorite DIY tutorial. You might want to grab your most luxurious goat hair blanket, dim the lights, and consider whether you've ever tried to plow a field with an ox and a donkey in what I can only imagine to be the ancient Aegean equivalent of a hold my beer moment. Now, let's ponder this. If you had a chance to avoid a massive war, would you choose the path of serenity or the path of madness? Would plowing your fields with mismatched livestock seem like a plausible option, or just a really bad idea? And isn't it interesting how bad ideas have a way of sticking around? Much like that one person who insists on telling party stories nobody really asked for. Congratulations! You've just woken up in Ithaca around 1200 BCE, where the olive oil drips as luxuriously as gossip at an ancient market, and the only option for avoiding conflict is to get wildly impractical. With sun streaming down on the culture that prides itself on brash heroics and targeted insults, we find Odysseus, our crafty protagonist, busy in his fields. So let's dive into this absurd little slice of life. The scene opens with Odysseus, our self-declared prima donna of the plow, furiously attempting to sow his seeds, except this isn't your average day in the fields. He's decided that instead of respectable farming operations, he'll harness the combined powers of an ox and a donkey. A bold choice indeed. It's as if he tried to create the world's first agricultural dream team and ended up with an interspecies buddy comedy. Imagine the scene unfolding before you. There's Odysseus, gloriously attired in his finest rags, sloppily plowing the land while absurdly mixing species. An ox, powerful yet painfully slow, tugging one way, and a frisky little donkey with the attention span of a gnat, trying to scamper off in the other direction. Tension levels are high, folks, and not in a dramatic way. More like a middle school dance when no one knows how to be cool. And guess what? Instead of spreading seeds, guess what's flying through the air? Salt. Yes, you heard that right. Salt. It's the ancient Greek version of throwing in the towel. Picture it. Odysseus, flailing his arms like a flustered version of a CrossFit instructor, inadvertently sowing salt in his fields instead of seeds. At this point, I can't help but wonder, would this make him a master chef, or just a guy who got really lost in the process of food prep? As he cackles to himself, the local farmers watch in disbelief. They exchanged glances that screamed, "Look at that guy. He's planting a salt farm. Does he think this is a seasoning competition?" I mean, isn't it just like that one friend who insists crafting artisanal salt sculptures is a viable career path? Trust me, it'll catch on, they say, bypassing logic and entering the realm of utter absurdity. Of course, his antics are not without a method. Odysseus was never one to shy away from creating a legendary tale, even if it meant being the village clown. You can just hear the locals whispering, Is he pretending to be crazy? Or is he just living the dream of all wannabe farmers? Spoiler alert. In ancient Greece, if you weren't in the heavy drama of the battlefield, you might as well have been plotting your next epic stand-up routine. But as the story unfolds, Odysseus's facade pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle missing half its parts. He might be mad, but it's the kind of crazy fortunate enough to mislead kings, generals, and everyone in between. His plundering through the fields, fueled by wild imaginings, might just be the one thing keeping him gingerly out of the war. So as you nestle deeper into your blanket, think of Odysseus, the accidental farmer, dazzled by the brilliant outcome of "pretend I'm mad" tactics. The hero who made chaos a notch below, well, you. May your dreams of expert farming be filled with mythical plows that steer clear of salt. Good night, dear dreamer. May your nightly escapades be sprinkled with laughter, and the sense that sometimes a little madness can save you from the absolute drama of life.
Chapter 5. The Plough and the Palamedes.
Hey guys, welcome back to the wonderful, wacky world of ancient mythology, where the gods are as temperamental as a toddler without a nap, and our hero, Odysseus, is trying to avoid an existential crisis, or, more accurately, a military draft. Tonight's adventure will feature some seriously bizarre agricultural techniques, because what's more exciting than watching a hero dodge warfare with a heaping spoonful of absurdity? As you settle in, I invite you to dim the lights, perhaps sprinkle a touch of lavender essential oil around. Make your space as heavenly as Athena's hairdo. And if you enjoy this soothing story, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and drop a comment. Only if it tickles your fancy, of course. Now take a deep breath, and let's dig into the ridiculousness of our ancient friend's life. Imagine this. What if dodging responsibilities in your life involved crazily drastic, rather embarrassing measures? Have you ever wanted to ditch a family gathering and ended up pretending to be a mythical chicken instead? How about convincing people you're deathly allergic to social interactions just so you can stay home and re-watch your favorite series for the 100th time? All those life decisions pale in comparison to what our dear Odysseus is about to encounter in the agricultural fields of Ithaca. As we begin our adventure, let's pull the curtain back on the loudest part of our tale, the moment when our rival, Palamedes, thought it would be a genius move to test Odysseus. Spoiler alert, he was wrong, and in a way that could make a dramatic soap opera seem like a gentle lullaby. The sun rises lazily over Ithaca, its gold spilling like honey over the fields, a pastoral paradise, or so it seems. You're not in a dreamy land of food and harmony. Instead, picture a farm where the air is thick with potential disaster, and the smell of livestock isn't quite the bouquet you describe as fresh. Odysseus, our beleaguered hero, is busy conspiring with a mismatched team of cattle, an ox with aspirations to be Hercules, and the wayward donkey who believes he's a majestic steed. Can you hear the constant arguments and refusals? You'll pull that plough, and I'll stand here munching grass. You tell me who's the capitalist dreamer here. Ah yes, farm life, where the main drama comes not from towering villains but from stubborn livestock issues. But here comes Palamedes, the rival who probably took enemies on his resume a little too seriously. He spots baby Telemachus, the young son of Odysseus, and decides to make a grand statement. Let's see how far your madness goes. He plops the poor kid right in front of a plow. Yes, you heard that right. It's like placing a donut in front of a dieter and saying, good luck. This event doesn't feature the gentle grazing of sheep or the friendly banter of neighbors discussing local gossip. No. Instead, Palamedes sees Odysseus approach while he's preparing his finger-to-the-pulse-of-insanity routine. Quite the pressure, wouldn't you say? If you've ever been caught in a lie or in an embarrassing situation, you can empathize with our man Odysseus, frantically searching for a way to avoid this disaster. Now picture it. Odysseus, with the composure of a cat trying to avoid a bath, swerves dramatically. He frantically yanks the plow to the side, resulting in a slapstick, muddy spectacle no one quite expected. Whoa there! I didn't sign up for a toddler's joyride, he seems to shout inwardly as he inadvertently reveals his brilliance in deception. As the other farmers watch, it's almost like you've stumbled into the world's first agricultural reality show. You can picture them perched on their hay bales, wide-eyed, whispering, "What is he doing? Is he truly mad or just a master of distraction?" Here he is, flailing wildly, like every bad dancer you've ever witnessed at a wedding, all in an effort to avoid being drafted into a war he honestly doesn't want to join. In that instant, Odysseus channels the divine, performing what could only be described as an acrobatic miracle, a feat of proportional chaos and cleverness that would later become the stuff of legends. But for now, the child and ox are okay, and Palamedes returns to the drawing board, utterly flummoxed. Amidst the chaos, there lurks a deep irony. Here was our hero, having outsmarted not only his rival, but also his own genuine feelings of responsibility. How often do we disguise our worries with ridiculousness, numb ourselves to the chaos we're evading? Perhaps we all have a touch of Odysseus in us when we swerve left instead of facing our plowing problems head on. So as you nestle further into your bedding, remember Odysseus in his fields, dodging life's plows with creativity that at least kept him from boredom. Life can be absurd, and much like our friend here, sometimes the real trick is in the swerves, turns, and outright madness we navigate along the way. Hold on to this funny little tale, where insanity itself became an art form, one that underscored the lesson that sometimes, even amidst life's demands, a little humor and a lot of wild antics can lead you to unexpected victories. Good night, dear dreamer. May you dream of epic maneuvers and crafty escapes, wherever the plows may lead you. Chapter 6. The Launch at Aulis. Hey guys, welcome back to another delightfully chaotic episode of Ancient Mythology Meetups. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into the frenzied world of ancient Greece, where the sun shines as brightly as a slice of lemon, but the drama is heavier than a shipload of overripe olives. Get ready, because we're about to investigate why our buddy Odysseus, whose resume features more ploys than an over-caffeinated strategist, was the only hero to escape the whimsical wrath of the gods. Now, before we set sail, how often do you find yourself caught in an obligation you'd rather dodge like a game of dodgeball with angry toddlers? Have you ever received a wedding invitation and suddenly felt like your couch had become your new best friend, maybe even your soulmate? Or perhaps signed up for the gym and instead embraced a more profound relationship with cotton socks and binge-watching documentaries on deep-sea creatures? You know, the ones narrated by ineffably soothing voices. As we settle into this tale, I encourage you to dim the lights, find a cozy corner, and wrap yourself in your favorite blanket like a snug burrito. Reflect for a moment. What would you do if your neighbors decided to wage war and dragged you along for the ride? Or if your so-called friends managed to make chess seem more dangerous than going out on a Tuesday night? Imagine that delightful existential dread bubbling up. Congratulations. You've just woken up in late Bronze Age Aegean Greece, where the sea is bluer than your ex's excuses and the winds blow harder than any online influencer's latest dubious diet plan. Specifically, it's owlless, and there's a war brewing that would make even the Kardashians raise an eyebrow, because showdown time has arrived, and our dear Odysseus can't hide behind a plow any longer. At the port of Aulis, the atmosphere buzzes with a cocktail of excitement and anxiety. Gather round, ye good citizens, for the whole of Greece has assembled. The many armies of kings and captains mingle, ready to embark on a journey that will be more epic than a Netflix series binge. Amongst the assembled is Agamemnon, the grand commander, plotting his not-so-subtle schemes like a hashtag going viral before it even existed. Picture this: a group of muscular, overzealous warriors clad in bronze armor, grumbling over who has the best hair gel. Listen, you can't conquer Troy without a fabulous coif, one of them roars. Meanwhile, Odysseus hangs back, attempting to communicate with his inner couch potato. Can't we just, Twitter sphere our grievances over a picnic? Our hero, the reluctant warrior, wants nothing more than to sip wine from a clay cup while gently swaying in his favorite hammock. But destiny, or more like Agamemnon's relentless insistence, has other plans. It's an ancient, no, you can't just skip war day situation here, and Odysseus's anti-war hero vibes are about to be tested. But let's chat about Agamemnon for a moment. This guy took bossy to a whole new level. If you thought your mother could be demanding during family holiday dinners, wait until you meet this guy. He's got a flair for over-dramatization that would make even the most theatrical high school drama club students blush. "Behold, my fellow kings," he bellows, arms waving extravagantly over an army of dour-looking men, each one silently regretting their life choices, with just a hint of regret about skipping breakfast. "We are united by an oath, a sacred promise. Let's sail across the sea to retrieve Helen, the woman whose beauty warrants both a war and a Netflix original series." As the crew unenthusiastically grips their weapons, the air around you smells distinctly of sea salt and unwashed armor. An invigorating blend. It's as if Poseidon himself took all the worst odors and slapped them in a cauldron. You can practically hear the gods snickering from Olympus, popcorn in hand, eagerly waiting for the Greek version of Survivor, Aegean edition, to unfold. Odysseus rolls his eyes, imagining future scenarios involving laundry and returning home like a man who definitely overslept his alarm. "I truly should have concealed myself behind the sheep," he muses, recalling that fateful day in the fields. Unfortunately for him, cunning cannot cover the practicalities of kingly coercion. Suddenly Agamemnon pulls out a colossal horn, attempting to rally everyone with a trumpeting flourish that's about as appealing as a call to arms from an angry goose. "To Troy we go!" he exclaims, like he's announcing a sail on sandals. If you're scared, pretend you're rowing a boat on a calm sea. All Odysseus can think about is the prospect of sand between his toes instead. He's longing for his humble abode, and the sound of his dear Ithaca's goats munching peacefully. But alas, escape doesn't seem to be on the menu tonight. As you settle deeper into your warm cocoon of comfort, remember Odysseus standing there, heroic on the outside, wishing he was snuggled in bed with a hefty cheese platter and his favorite book. Isn't it slightly reassuring to know that even the greatest of heroes had days where facing the music meant confronting the chaos and hilarity of being good old human? After all, isn't life just one big, inexplicable odyssey, filled with absurd battles of will, ill-fated drafts to war, and desire for a good night's sleep? And with that thought, I hope you drift into dreams where even amidst the loudest of horns and the most confusing of battle cries, you find your personal oasis of bliss. Good night, dear dreamers. May your night be filled with restful tides and journeys to the most blissful of shores. Chapter 7. The Colossal Conundrum of the Wooden Horse. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Mythology Meetups, where the gods might be laughing at our expense, but at least we have snacks to console us. Tonight, we continue our pedestrian tour through the mythological chaos of ancient Greece, diving face first into the story of the infamous Trojan horse, an architectural marvel that really takes thinking outside the box to a whole new level. If your day was rougher than a rock against a rougher rock, you've come to the right place. Now, before we venture into the story, let's take a moment to ponder. Have you ever been so excited about a purchase that you ignored all the warning signs? Perhaps you bought that gently used car that turned out to be a prank on wheels, or maybe the great deal on that exercise bike that's currently serving as a clothes hanger. Good investment decisions are hard, aren't they? And did you ever compare packing for a weekend trip to Tetris? You know, struggling to shove your belongings into a suitcase while trying not to lose your sanity or your temper. It's truly an Olympic event in its own right. Imagine all of this excitement, but instead of packing for a fun getaway, it's a war that's about to unfold in a highly questionable suburb of Troy. Congratulations! You've just woken up in the late Bronze Age Aegean, a time when everyone believed in gods more fickle than your grocery list. You find yourself smack dab in the middle of the Trojan plain, eyeing a colossal wooden horse that looks like it was designed by someone who had eaten too much honey and decided it would be fantastic to build a life-sized piñata. The stage is set. The Greeks, weary from years of fruitless siege upon the city of Troy, have decided that a good old smidgen of trickery is the solution to their problems. You can practically hear the warriors complain about their aching backs while scheming about this fantastical horse. Listen, one fellow mutters. If we can't breach those walls, why not invite ourselves in through the front door? With style. Picture it, a lavishly crafted wooden horse, standing proudly like a testament to misguided creativity and poor decision-making. It's not just any horse either, oh no. This giant piece of lumber is filled with the bravest, or perhaps the most bored, Greek soldiers, lying in wait like sardines in a tin can, ready to spring into action at what they hope will be a surprise attack, assuming they can avoid knocking over some vital structural support with their fidgeting. As the sun sets over the horizon, casting a golden hue reminiscent of the failed attempts to tan away the pasty looks of their alabaster-skinned warriors, Odysseus steps forward, producing the same audacity he had perfected in earlier, troublesome endeavors. Hey guys, I've got it. Let's give 'em a gift they can't refuse. Spoiler, this is how you end up.
With a Greek Netflix horror movie and a few awkward moments after dinner. The plan unfolds faster than you can say, "My neighbor has the loudest karaoke machine ever." Amid ambiguous cheers, think more satisficing than celebratory, the Greeks lug the 2-ton gift to the gates of Troy, making a racket reminiscent of a clumsy toddler learning to walk. You might expect them to cart it in on a red carpet, but, alas, it was more of a dirt path with a few loose stones. And we all know just how great loose stones are for maintaining one's dignity. Now, let's take a moment to imagine the Trojans on the other side, peering over their sturdy walls, possibly munching on stale pita. "What's that?" One Trojan soldier squints, eyebrow raised. "Is it a gift? Is it an elaborate joke? Or, horror of horrors, is it the world's largest smoke alarm? Are they really going to bring it in? It's like hosting an impromptu, let's not trust this obvious trap party." With great fanfare and quite a bit of off-key Greek chanting, the proud folks of Troy drag the horse inside, triumph mingling with confusion stronger than a double espresso. Feast your eyes on this. It's the social equivalent of taking your neighbor's houseplant and claiming it as your own, deserving a round of applause for sheer audacity. But hold on. Just like that late-night infomercial that promises to change your life while simultaneously ruining it, our steed of fortunes has a darker purpose hidden within its wooden heart. Under cover of night, the Greek warriors, now more like shadows creeping out of the world's largest piñata, begin their stealthy operation, like confused kittens braving the great outdoors for the first time. After what feels like an eternity spent waiting in that horse, they unleash their mayhem, transforming their holiday gift into a surprise party none of the Trojans signed up for. Suddenly, a whispered chaos explodes throughout the unsuspecting city. It's like a surprise parenting technique gone awry. You thought you were getting a pet, but now you've got a stampede running through your living room. And the worst part? There's no returning this gift for a refund. You can bet the Trojans are feeling that buyer's remorse right in their very foundations. In true Greek fashion, the wooden horse becomes not just a vessel of treachery, but an emblem of human error, resourcefulness, and a healthy dose of absurdity. Because who needs realistic battle tactics when you can just dodge the walls entirely?
As dawn breaks over the crumbling city, a new epiphany dawns on Odysseus. Sometimes the best plans are the ones that would leave your American neighbors scratching their heads in disbelief. So, dear listeners, as you float into dreams tucked comfortably beneath your own metaphorical Trojan horse of a blanket, remember that life, even in wartime, can turn into a whimsical misadventure. May your slumber be filled with visions of freedom and laughter, and your mornings less hijacked by unexpected house guests. Good night.
Chapter 8. The Triumph of Tarmacking. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Mythology Meetups, where the tales may be older than your grandma's secret casserole recipes, but trust me, they're still spicier than her infamous chili. Tonight, we'll be exploring something as absurdly intriguing as finding out your cat has been secretly hosting underground poker games while you were out grocery shopping. Imagine a world where heroes, gods, and wooden horses collide and still manage to get a few laughs in before the evening is over. So, picture this. It's a day in the fantastic late Bronze Age Aegean, filled with laughter, confusion, and, oddly enough, the scent of really bad cologne wafting through the air, thanks to the Trojans, who just can't resist a bit of post-war celebration, much like sports fans celebrating a long-awaited victory. But wait, do you ever wonder what it would have been like to throw a party in a city built by the very architects of disaster? Can you imagine trying to impress your friends with a game of Guess the Warrior after a long day of war? Or preparing a feast for guests who are actually sleeping in the giant wooden present you mistakenly invited inside? So, dear listener, congratulations. You've just woken up in the prime time of Trojan festivities, where the only thing louder than the revelers is the collective "uh-oh" on the horizon. You tread through bustling streets of Troy, where victory banners flap in the wind and the citizens dance like they've just struck a deal with the gods, only to realize the gods were, in fact, on summer vacation. Now, as the victorious Trojans parade through their city, dragging along the ridiculously oversized wooden horse like a group of overly enthusiastic college students brandishing the team's trophy, let's talk about this celebration. You'd think they were rolling out the red carpet for a Hollywood movie star, but instead, it feels more like the worst episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? As they haphazardly maneuver their wooden wonder, you can almost hear the splintering wood sigh with each bump over cobblestones that seem more suited for a lazy horse than a massive equine fiasco. The laughter echoes through the streets, mixed with the slightly off-key chants that would make even a goat cover its ears. Hip hip hooray, oh what a day! We've conquered their army, put 'em in dismay. Thracian-style karaoke at its finest. They are so consumed by their triumph that nobody stops to wonder why bringing a giant horse into the city seemed like a better idea than, actually guarding the fortress. Let's not forget the townsfolk, who gaze in awe at this gift, with some folks playing the role of the overly eager friend who can't wait to unwrap the biggest present. What is it? A new place to hang our helmets? An elaborate prank? Or perhaps a mystical spa experience? But, unbeknownst to them, this gift reeks of bad decisions, like buying non-refundable tickets for a carnival ride that turns out to be a glorified slide at a local community fair.
You look around and can't help but think of potential party favors they could have gone with instead. Hey, how about a giant fruit basket, you muse to yourself? Or maybe a stylish toga that doesn't make you look like you just rolled out of a haystack. But nope. Instead, we have a horse with zero intention of eating, drinking, or being useful in any shape or form, other than gathering dust and horror stories. As night falls, the Trojans are blissfully unaware of their impending doom. They've traded their sense of security for one night of unbridled merriment. The city glows under the light of torches that flicker as wildly as the patrons after too many cups of mead. Each torch casts moving shadows on the walls, making the horse appear, if possible, even more sinister. Maybe it should have come with a warranty, you think, as you watch more and more Trojans venture closer to inspect their extraordinary new addition. Meanwhile, our adventurous Greek buddies are crouched in the dim space of the horse, perfecting their stealth, like bizarre ninjas in a sitcom. Do you think they had a team-building exercise before hopping in? You can picture them practicing, whispering, "Remember, calmness is key. If anyone asks about the smell, just play it cool like it's part of the gift." But as unwitting as the diners are enjoying their festive meal, whispers of excitement rumble through the horse. "Can you hear that?" one soldier mumbles to another. "I thought I heard them mentioning tinder for ancient warriors." You chuckle to yourself, picturing a character profile. Yup, swiping right on destruction. Also enjoys long walks along the battlefield, collecting treasures, and getting trapped inside an overhyped wooden structure. Finally, the night air becomes thick with anticipation. The Trojans, with their wine-fueled laughter, start to turn in for the night, lulled to sleep by the soft harmony of drunken snoring and minor celebratory hiccups. And the warriors, for all their plotting, wait silently until it's time to tear apart the fabric of Troy's overconfidence. A perfect ending to a night dedicated to careless abandon. As you drift into the depths of this chaotic reverie, may the humor and absurdity of their plight lull you into a slumber of your own, filled with hopes of dodging future pitfalls, be it a giant horse or merely another awkward family gathering. Sleep tight and remember, the best gifts aren't always the ones you can see. Good night. Chapter 9. The Silence Before the Storm. Hey guys, welcome back to our deep dive into Greek mythology, where tonight's tale is less like a leisurely hike through the woods and more like a surprise fire drill during a nap. We're about to venture into a world where heroes were more prone to bad decisions than you are at the annual office potluck. Imagine a place where someone thought, what a genius idea it would be to sneak into a fortified city inside a giant wooden horse. But instead of a simple rational approach like, let's just knock, they opted for the world's oddest game of hide and seek. So if you're chuckling at the absurdity, you're not alone. It's basically the ancient version of your neighbor showing up to a barbecue with a piñata filled with only broccoli. But before we tumble into tonight's slightly deranged adventure, I invite you to dim the lights, grab your softest blanket, and settle in. Picture yourself in ancient Troy, where the air smells like roasted grains and ambitions gone wrong. Do you ever wonder how ancient Greeks calculated their breaking point between let's throw a victory feast and oops, we forgot our defenses? Or what would happen if Odysseus had chosen to just stay home, order takeout, and binge-watch his latest favorite Greek tragedy? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the late Bronze Age Aegean. because it seems your time machine has a mind of its own, and nostalgia for bad decision-making isn't just a modern affair. With the faint sound of drunken revelry echoing through the night, and the poorly constructed war plan just waiting for a twist, you're in for the ride of your life. Just remember, when gods are involved, it's about to get weirder. So let's talk about the night sky, shall we? Out here, the stars twinkle like all your latest regrets, constantly reminding you of that time at the office Christmas party when you somehow mixed up the punch bowl with the cleaning solution. You can almost hear them gossiping. Did you hear what Odysseus is up to? But that's not the only thing twinkling. Down below, in the shadow of a colossal wooden horse, a group of Greek warriors is crouching, their destinies balancing on the edge of drunken miscalculation. Silently, under the cover of night, Odysseus and his battle-hardened companions emerge from this peculiar gift, as if it were the world's largest piñata waiting to burst, if piñatas were filled with overly ambitious soldiers instead of candy. The only problem? This wasn't a festive surprise. It was the culmination of an elaborate ruse that could very well end in either legendary glory or awkward social media posts. Imagine the dissatisfaction in the crowd back home, the spectators who'd gathered to hear tales of bravery. Oh, sure, Odysseus survived the wrath of gods. But have you heard how he once had to layer himself in a wooden horse like the world's most confused piece of IKEA furniture? I mean, really. With the city gates more creaky than your grandmother's knees while trying to dance the Macarena, Odysseus and his pals, armed with a bubbling pot of mischief and an assortment of questionable battle strategies, stepped cautiously into the vibrant chaos of Troy's celebrations. The moon bathes the sweet smell of roasted meats, mixed with the regrettable scent of too much mead. The Trojans, in their glee, murmur and chatter like a flock of geese at an all-you-can-eat buffet. You can almost see the Trojans celebrating their ridiculous win, like kids with a free pass to an amusement park, filled with overzealous ride operators. Those rides just happen to include potential doom, of course. "We did it! We won!" You can picture someone shouting amidst the sound of clanging goblets and boisterous laughter. "The Greeks are toast!" Meanwhile, Odysseus and his merry band of misfits are hidden, their eyes darting around as if they're trying to catch a glimpse of the bathroom line at a poorly organized event. "What do we do now?" one whispers, barely containing his panic, while another declares, "If I can survive angry gods, I can survive this situation," sounding remarkably like the guy who offers advice at a party, but disappears when it's time to help set up. As they peer through the cracks of the wooden horse, the spectacle unfolds like an epic Saturday night in a college town. But instead of frat houses, you've got a city on the brink of complacency, blissfully unaware of the boiling chaos shaking within its very foundations. The longer they wait, the more ideas tumble through their brains, each one more ill-advised than the last. Maybe we should just jump out and scare them, or start a conga line until they fall asleep. But the clock is ticking. The wine flows faster than the plot of an unfortunate sitcom, and even the most bumbling of plans requires a leap of faith, or a well-placed shove. The heart of adventure beats loudly as they strategize. Do we do a surprise attack? Try to blend in? Or start a dance-off? As you drift deeper into this extraordinary night, the absurdities of human endeavour unravel before you. An adventure that threatens to tip into chaos at a moment's notice. Embrace the humour of it all, because sometimes the greatest triumph lies not in how you start, but simply in having survived the calamity that's about to ensue. So, nestle your head into your pillow, and let the ridiculousness of the past whisk you off to sleep, as Odysseus prepares for a night of chaos unlike any other. Good night.
Chapter 10. The Cyclops' Cave of Complaints. So, let's talk about caves, shall we? Not the picturesque kind with beautiful stalactites that look like nature's attempts at crystal chandeliers, but the ones that trap a bunch of weary sailors and a guy named Odysseus who really should have checked the happy hour specials a bit more closely. Picture this. You're nestled in the shadows of a cave that smells like a combination of wet dog and last month's leftovers you didn't ask for. The walls are maybe a bit too rock-solid for your taste, but apparently it's cold out, and the Cyclops Polyphemus isn't the sort to be sharing his Airbnb with just anyone. He's about as inviting as a cactus-shaped chair at a toddler's birthday party. Now, if you think your roommate is annoying, wait until you meet Polyphemus, who is literally the worst of both worlds. Imagine a giant who also happens to be a mono-eyed tormentor, and instead of popping over for a casual chat, he seals his cave entrance with a boulder you wouldn't even want to think about moving on laundry day. Spoiler alert, the laundry's not getting done anytime soon. As you huddle in the dark, the atmosphere feels thicker than a family reunion where no one wants to acknowledge Uncle Bob's latest DIY disaster. The tension is palpable, and it's not just the smell of stale cheese wafting through the cave. Your fellow sailors are whispering, eyes wide with panic, as they calculate their odds against the Cyclops, who's currently munching on a rather large sheep like it's a popcorn chicken nugget. Can someone remind me, you might hear someone ask, didn't we have a plan? But here's the problem. Planning in a cave filled with giant mythology monsters often involves too many details, like an IKEA assembly guide written in Groanic. Sound familiar? Think about it. You walk into a situation and you realize everyone thought someone else was in charge. Wait, I thought you were going to ask the huge one-eyed dude to let us out. Well, that plan's gone south faster than a Greek ship caught in a storm. The one-eyed monstrosity doesn't just eat sheep. He's also auditioning for the role of worst host ever. You think your last dinner party went poorly, you might ponder. At least you weren't on the menu. However, like everything else, you're in this together, trying to survive the Cyclops' dubious hospitality with nothing more than sheer grit. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes Odysseus, who, despite being the smart one, could easily replace brilliant with hopelessly optimistic. He devises a name even as clever as Nobody, which, let's be real, is a winner of a name if you're looking to both confuse a dangerous giant and save your skin in the process. It's like calling yourself Mr. Forgettable at a gathering of old high school friends. As evening rolls in, you find yourself tangled in a master plan that would make even Machiavelli raise an eyebrow. With careful whispers
and deep breaths, the crew prepares for action. This is the point where we exhibit extreme teamwork, someone mutters nervously, as everyone starts brainstorming a grand escape. Spoiler: it involves deception, a sharp stake, and lots of "whoops, we didn't mean to stab you in the eye." Think of it as the world's highest stakes game of rock, paper, scissors. But instead of those objects, you're employing pointy spears and clever disguises. In this moment, how do you distract a Cyclops while simultaneously plotting your escape? You might just be thinking this is why they didn't allow you to join the debate team. Odysseus's ultimate strategy hinges not just on innocent trickery, but a good dose of sheer desperation. "Hey, Polyphemus!" he bellows as his voice echoes off the cool cave walls. "Your sheep are, on the other side of the cave." Meanwhile, your heart is racing, practically launching into the throat of one of your comrades. This is how we die, you think, not just by sheer force, but lightheadedness from nervous laughter at the absurdity of it all. It's like witnessing your worst first date scenario unfold as you try to talk your way out of an increasingly ridiculous situation. With a swift jab, Odysseus and his fellow sailors execute the plan flawlessly, which, considering odds and previous performance, is about as astonishing as seeing a cat operate a toaster safely. And when Polyphemus, the hapless giant, finally succumbs to the trickery of a name, you can practically hear the collective sigh of relief echoing throughout the cave. So, as you nod off, and the comedy of this predicament curls around you like a cozy blanket, remember tonight's lesson. Sometimes it takes a Cyclops-sized predicament to get out of a tight spot in life. Whether that tight spot is a cave filled with myths, or the Monday morning rush hour, you've got to channel your inner Odysseus and embrace the absurd. Sweet dreams, fellow adventurer, because you've survived not just a cave, but the wonders of ancient Greek logic. Good night. Chapter 11. Polyphemus and the Blinding Light of Regret. So let's talk about Cyclopes, shall we? Specifically, let's settle on one special Cyclops named Polyphemus, who on this particularly unfortunate evening is indulging himself in something stronger than the punch at your cousin's wedding. Let's just say he's been guzzling wine like a person hell-bent on forgetting last week's goat-herding competition. His single eye, which you can't help but think resembles a very suspicious full moon, is bulging out with the potency of the vintage he's ingested. Imagine this moment, you, Odysseus, and his crew of sailors crouched in the dim cave, watching as the giant reels back unconscious from his third barrel of what might as well be liquid courage, or more appropriately, liquid stupidity. It's the kind of night where even the stalactites seem to shiver in anticipation. The cave smells like a brewery that desperately needs a cleanup crew, and you can't shake the notion that you might just be trapped in the world's worst wine-tasting event. As you take a moment to absorb this delightful scene, you might wonder what exactly led to this moment. Was there a miscommunication when Odysseus read the Yelp reviews? Great wine, terrible neighbors? You imagine a drunken debate within your mind over which is worse, facing a Cyclops or enduring another round of karaoke from that one guy on your street who thinks he sounds like Frank Sinatra. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. Suddenly, Odysseus nudges you in the ribs. This is the part where we minimalize some eye-poking damage, he whispers, half dreaming of victory, half wondering if he'll ever have another slice of lamb roast again. Because who knows what the future holds? The Cyclops is about to be introduced to the concept of painful realizations, and you're all here to witness it. Now, crafting the perfect pointy weapon from a tree branch might sound like your average DIY project, but the stakes are considerably higher when that tree branch is a sharpened red-hot steak on fire, and your potential target is a giant with a knack for 10-second squishings. It's like planning a surprise birthday party, but instead of cake, you've got a pokey stick, and instead of friends, you've got a very angry, one-eyed titan. Does anybody else feel like we're about to become the punchline to a bad mythological joke? A fellow crewmate mutters, his heart thumping like a drum solo that's one crash away from disaster. But who's to question Odysseus's brilliant plan of let's literally stab the giant in the eye? Could it get more absurd? Probably not, but here we are. As the crew readies for this audacious act of ocular violence, you can almost hear the giant's snores echo like bad decisions made after too much wine. It's a delicate balance, deciding between stealth and sheer bravado. In this predicament, any rash move could turn one of your comrades into a balmy evening snack for the Cyclops. "On three," whispers Odysseus, his voice barely breaking the tension, as if each syllable could wake his not-so-friendly neighbor. 1, 2, 3. In a synchronized dance that would make any naval drill instructor proud, the crew lunges at Polyphemus, thrusting the stake deep into the eye of the beast. The result? A deafening roar that reverberates off the cave walls, making you question all your life choices up to this moment. You practically clutch your sides as the piercing cries of the Cyclops bounce around, like a terrible rendition of an opera you never wanted to hear. "Who did this?" he bellows, clearly struggling to figure out what just went down. "Nobody!" shouts Odysseus. "Well played, Captain Clever." The monstrous giant suddenly realizes that his own cluelessness has landed him in a world of hurt, as if he had blindly stumbled into a Zoom meeting without remembering to turn on his camera. If there's one lesson to take from this fiasco, it's that even cyclopes aren't immune to embarrassment, especially when their retaliatory yells create echoes that embarrass both their stalking shadows and their recently befriended sheep. "You'll pay for this," Polyphemus shouts. And you can't help but chuckle, thinking of how this is not just an eye-for-an-eye situation. It's more of a full-on ocular crisis management meeting. As he blindly thrashes about, knocking over his own cheese stash like an enraged toddler, you close your eyes just for a moment. With your heart racing alongside the sheer absurdity of this situation, you're reminded that even the most fearsome being can be felled by his own terrible drinking habits and bad luck. All in all, Odysseus's crew stands proudly, patting themselves on the back like champions of the absurd. And as you gradually drift off to sleep amid this whirlwind of chaos, remember, sometimes a brilliantly executed plan boils down to a good name and an even better poke. Sweet dreams, fellow adventurer. Who knew blinding a cyclops could feel this amusingly absurd? Good night.
Chapter 12. The Great Woolly Escape. Ah, the Greeks. I suppose it's easy to get caught up in their daily myths and skirmishes. But today we focus on a rather exceptional moment. The great escape of Odysseus and his not-so-bright crew. Imagine yourself just about now, drowsy and cozied up in your own personal cocoon of blankets, about to unravel the chaos that is Greek mythology, where things get wildly absurd in the thick of it. So here you are, Odysseus, fresh off blinding a cyclops with a stake sharper than your cousin Miranda's comments about your love life. You're ready to make a break for it. And in this thrilling moment, you find yourselves huddled together like sardines in a tin can. Well, minus the olive oil and potential salad dressing. Polyphemus may have lost his eye, but you'd think the guy had just hit the wine cellar one too many times. Oh wait, he did. The joyous part? You're dodging an angry giant. It's like trying to pass a high school math test while your teacher threatens to fail you if you don't find the square root of 10 under the desk. Spoiler alert, you might want to focus on the angry giant. With all his sheep blissfully unaware of the drama unfurling around them, you glance around the other crew members, who are sharing the kind of looks that say, "Are we really going to do this?" You can nearly hear the collective thoughts buzzing in the air. What'll we be telling our grandkids? Was it an epic tale of bravado, or just another clumsy misadventure? And let's not forget the utterly absurd strategy dreamt up by Odysseus, clinging under the woolly, comfortably oblivious sheep like it's the latest fashion trend. You're practically smothered in the thick pelts, which smell of a farmyard that has definitely seen better days. The scent wafts through the air like a bad cheese platter left in the sun, tangy and overwhelming, a reminder that while you're attempting to escape a vengeful cyclops, you might still need to flirt with a breath mint afterward. As you wiggle under the fleece, you can't help but wonder, have these sheep ever experienced such a dire situation? Do they even realize they're about to become indispensable escape vehicles? Wow! This is some sort of woolly Uber service, you might think, noting the distinctly bewildered expressions on their faces, wondering why everyone now seems a lot more human-shaped. The irony of hiding beneath sheep while awaiting the wrath of the one-eyed giant doesn't escape you. It's like playing hide-and-seek in a petting zoo gone tragically wrong. The Cyclops, still grumbling through the residual effects of grape juice, is now resorting to some ridiculously primitive tactics. "Whoa! Who's messing with my sheep?" he bellows, as if they're all plotting against him. You can picture the sheep rolling their eyes like a pack of disgruntled teenagers. What? Us? Never! Meanwhile, Polyphemus gropes blindly for something to grab onto, feeling far too much like a confused toddler looking for his lost toy. And then it hits you. How absurd! Here you are, waiting for the hulking monster to come down from his sheep-induced stupor, all while you're listening to his awkward love-hate relationship with his own livestock. "Oh, don't mind me," he mutters. "I'm just wrestling with my emotions and my large, unmanageable flock." With every swish of wool, you've begun to imagine an alternate reality, where these sheep are actually the masterminds behind your getaway.
They could very well be relatives of a rogue sheep from your last foray into public transportation. Just imagine asking a sheep at a bus stop for directions. "Excuse me, my dear woolly companion, can you tell me how to get to Ithaca? Or do you have a woolly travel guide?" As Polyphemus continues his bumbling, you can't help but snicker quietly beneath your little wool-covered fortress. Just then, a particularly cheeky ewe gives you a sideways glance, almost as if she's in on the game. "Don't mind me," that sheep seems to say. "I'm just trying to win Best Supporting Actress in a mythological comedy. It's tough when your co-star is literally a potato with a mouth." And then, finally, just as everything seems to be perfectly absurd, Polyphemus begins to shuffle his sheep towards the exit. With the giant's footsteps vibrating beneath you, you risk a glance at the exit and think, brewing places like Ithaca could use more mythological workplace mishaps like this, but only if you surmounted to tell the tale. You'd think escaping an irate Cyclops would have you on edge, but you realize, dear listener, the vibrant absurdity of the moment would make Odysseus roll around with laughter. After all, isn't the beauty of life sometimes nestled even deeper than the tangled wool of a sheep in the droll international dramas of Greek mythology? And as you continue to cling tightly, prepared to drape your destiny and a few remnants of cheap sheep musk all over the floor of history, just remember, if you ever find yourself as a human cloak in the field, well, at least you'll always have a story to tell. Sweet dreams of sheep-draped heroics await. Chapter 13. The Cyclops Complains. Odysseus's Big Mouth. Hey guys, tonight we dive into something more outrageous than your last family gathering. Odysseus at a Cyclops' brunch. Imagine the feels, colder than that random plate of leftover tuna salad hidden at the back of the fridge. Here's the deal. We've got a blinded giant, an egocentric hero, and a lot of sheep, eagerly waiting to be the woolly Uber driving you into mythological oblivion. But first, if you enjoy this bizarre odyssey through ancient Greek shenanigans, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, comment like your favorite dish from the local diner was just served, but only if you actually enjoy this. Now, whether you're lounging like a Spartan in a cozy chair or juggling your pillows in an attempt to recreate that perfect sleeping position, let's set the scene. Have you ever wondered what it was like to be adrift on the Aegean Sea, just trying to avoid a terrifying giant while making sure your last bitter argument over who gets the last piece of baklava doesn't become legendary? We've all had that mini drama, right? How about navigating the complexities of not using your actual name while being pursued by someone who clearly skipped their last therapy session? Or does that sound a little too familiar to your last Zoom work meeting? Congratulations! You've just woken up in ancient Greece, specifically on the rough waves rolling off the coast of Sicily, circa the late Bronze Age, a time when sunscreen was made of olive oil, and the best form of communication was yelling your lineage at vengeful cyclopes. Now, back to our hero Odysseus, who's feeling triumphantly clever as his ship speeds away from the troubled shore. The taste of victory, tinged with the salty sea air, mingles with an unspeakable type of bravado. picture him standing there, a mane of hair tousled by the wind, as the sounds of crashing waves blend rhythmically with his perfectly timed overconfidence. But hang on a moment. Does Odysseus suffer from a serious case of foot-in-mouth syndrome? Because, dear listener, he suddenly feels the need to yell back at Polyphemus, the giant, as if they were old friends at a bar. "Hey, you big one-eyed potato, my name is Odysseus, son of Laertes. You just got schooled by my cleverly waxed attack strategy." Because nothing says, "I value my life," quite like announcing your identity to a really angry Cyclops. Ah yes, a classic move. You can almost hear Polyphemus internally going, "Excuse me? Who does this guy think he is?" as he rubs his now empty eye socket. It's a mix of disbelief, a tinge of regret, and a sprinkle of, "I should have just stuck to my sheep." However, Odysseus is leaning heavily into his moment, excitingly idiotic or idiotically exciting. The lines blur beautifully in this moment of what the Greeks dubbed hubris. Now, let's ponder the image of Polyphemus launching into a dramatic rant upon hearing Odysseus's name. "Poseidon, get over here. This guy just provoked me." Polyphemus has officially opened the floodgates to vengeance. You know it's about to go down because nothing feels quite so poetic as an angry god seeking revenge through a newly invalidated personal vendetta. That'll teach him for not keeping his scream on a low volume. As Odysseus and his crew sail away, those brave, confused sailors, who honestly didn't sign up for polytheistic drama, they now also have to contend with the repercussions of this giant poetic pitfall. You can almost feel the collective "uh-oh" ripple through the crew as Polyphemus calls upon his father Poseidon, a casual belief that leaving a giant with time to seek vengeance is a superb plan. But what does the sea god do? Oh, he's no ordinary father. He takes action like a dad finding out his kid didn't clean their room. Cue the storms, the tornadoes of rage, and rocky waters that suddenly look like they belong in a particularly aggressive nature documentary. Underneath the waves, you can almost picture Poseidon shaking his trident like an irate parent shaking a finger. "You'll see, Odysseus, there are consequences for this goofy little tattletale." As your mind wanders through this chaotic whirlwind, other absurd thoughts bubble up. What would Odysseus's text messages to his crew look like now? "Hey team, great job blinding that giant. Also, maybe don't mention who we are next time. Hashtag not so subtle." By now, the ship is navigating through roiling waters, the crew huddling together, wide-eyed and grasping onto each other. You know, the classic "what have we done" bonding moment. Here they were, mere mortals caught up in a divine disagreement because of one man's oversized ego. It's utterly ridiculous, and yet fittingly Greek. So there you have it. One restless night drifting through tumultuous waters, all because Odysseus couldn't keep his impressive lineage to himself. Mix in a giant's wrath and a very perturbed ocean deity, and you've certainly created a blend of chaos greater than any olive oil-infused dish cooked by a vengeful chef. And as that storm brews on the horizon, just remember, it's not always great to be the smartest guy in the room, especially if the room happens to be a giant's cave in the middle of nowhere. Sweet dreams of angry Greek deities and salty tides await. Chapter 14. Poseidon's Wrath. The sea goes full drama queen. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we delve into a historical tale that's about to rock your world. Like that time you thought you could make it through the week without grocery shopping, only to end up subsisting on condiments. Yep,
Tonight we're diving deeper than your last attempt at a scientific explanation of why your houseplants keep dying. This is Poseidon Unleashed, the Great Tempest episode, the story of Odysseus who thought he could outsmart a giant and didn't take into account that gods certainly don't appreciate being insulted. But before we begin, if you enjoy this wild ride through ancient Greek pandemonium, consider subscribing, giving a thumbs up, or leaving a comment. Only if you actually enjoyed this, of course. We want no fake love here, just like there's no fake olive oil in a proper Greek salad. Now, before you decide to dim the lights and find the perfect sleeping position, is it lying flat or the starfish, aka an accidental bed star? Let's ponder a few things. Ever been so passionately offended that you wished to unleash chaos upon the innocent bystanders in your life? Or is that just how you feel when the Wi-Fi cuts out while streaming your favorite show? And what about bad decisions? Have you ever yelled at complete strangers about their parentage after finishing what you clearly thought was only your third cocktail of the evening? Picture this. You've just woken up in the late Bronze Age Aegean, a time when no one could air-dry their laundry without warding off ominous ocean deities. Welcome to the ocean. Feel that salty breeze as you sit hunched over on a tiny wooden raft that suspiciously smells like last week's processed seafood. Because here's the kicker. Odysseus has just angered Poseidon. Now, let's set the scene. The sky looks as promising as a toddler's mood after a missed nap, and the sea starts to froth like an angry foaming toy in a bathtub. Poseidon grabs his trident with all the flair of a toddler throwing a tantrum over a toy that's mysteriously disappeared. Arms raised in fury, he stirs the tumultuous waves, sending them crashing like a marching band performing at its final rehearsal. The sound of thunder growls in the distance, while the gentle lap of waves transitions into a full-on aquatic scream party. You can almost hear Poseidon shouting, "I'm going to need you to hold onto your hats, mortals. It's about to get wild." If the sea were a Netflix show, this would be labeled as Season Finale. Poseidon isn't paying attention to ratings. As Odysseus and his crew prepare for what's about to become a ferocious aquatic roller coaster, the waves conspire to tear their faithful raft to shreds. One moment you're drifting serenely, and the next your world is collapsing around you, like your plans to go to a yoga class after an unplanned pizza night. Picture the mayhem. Sails flapping wildly in the wind, ropes snapping, and crew members scrambling about like confused chickens in a storm. There's thunder, there's lightning, and poor Odysseus is just standing there, looking as perplexed as someone who got called up on stage at a karaoke bar when they were just there to support their friends. "But Poseidon, I was just joking," he pleads. "I thought gods had a sense of humor, too." Yeah, this isn't going well. Odysseus just threw the punchline to a very angry god. The tempest swirls around them with a vengeance, and his sailors can be seen grabbing onto what's left of their crude vessel, eyes widened, expressions frozen between dread and disbelief, as if they're caught in a never-ending "what now" dilemma. Their epic journey to get home has transformed into an impromptu horror movie directed by Poseidon, who's just gone off script. Try imagining it. Ships splintering under Poseidon's fury, while Odysseus, ever the pragmatist, tries to shout rational advice over the howling wind. "Hold on, everyone. Whoever reaches the shore next buys the first round of drinks. No.
Please don't abandon ship. This would be the perfect moment to invoke the classic, "What happens at sea stays at sea." Except now, the ocean's drama is about to make headlines for centuries. And when the raft inevitably gets shredded like yesterday's salad, Odysseus finds himself floundering in the water, regaining his wits and wondering if this was all a metaphorical undertaking for taking constructive criticism. The chaos around him rivals that wild night out you can't seem to remember, leaving him treading water and hoping for salvation. As Poseidon continues to unleash a storm that even a rubber ducky wouldn't survive, Odysseus looks around at his crew, positively wishing they had just held a pillow fight instead. So, we wanted adventure. Maybe we should have just stuck with the Cyclops. So just remember, folks, when the ocean starts acting like a drama queen, it might actually be a good time to reevaluate your career choices as a hero. Poseidon's not in the mood for jokes. The sea is serious business. Sweet dreams of heroic blunders and tempestuous oceans await. Now breathe deeply, settle in, and let the waves lull you into a mythologically comical slumber.
Chapter 15. The Irresistible Allure of the Lotus Eaters. Hey guys, welcome back to another mystical voyage where we dive deeper into tales long forgotten, or technically ones that should really stay buried, much like that embarrassing video from your college days. Tonight, we're venturing into a realm that's more delightful than your aunt's attempt at baking gluten-free cookies, hazy, blissful, and possibly lethal, the land of the Lotus Eaters. Now, before we swim deep into this dreamy narrative, I'd like to remind you to hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment, preferably kind, because no one enjoys a ghost tour of negativity. Only the brave are allowed to roam these ancient shores. So sit back, dim the lights, fire up a dreamy fan, and snuggle into your most comfortable sleep position, whether that's fetal, starfish, or lying flat like a pancake is entirely up to you. But as you do, ask yourself, have you ever been so comfortable that getting out of bed felt like preparing to dive into ice-cold water? Or perhaps, have you ever eaten something so delicious that it made all your life decisions feel like bottom-tier options? Good news. These are the exact sentiments you'll explore in today's story. Congratulations! You've just woken up in the late Bronze Age Aegean, amidst dazzling blue skies, enjoying the warmth of the sun like a cat on a windowsill. Except you're not really a cat. And for you, there's a significant lack of resale values on freaky cat videos. No, instead, you're Odysseus, who just survived Poseidon's aquatic tantrum, somehow arriving at an enchanted island inhabited by the wonderfully oblivious Lotus Eaters. As you step onto the shore, feel the soft golden sand cradle your feet like it's whispering sweet nothings. The air is fragrant with flowers you can't quite name, but they likely have titles that would take multiple PhDs in Greek botany to pronounce. But you're not here for a botany lesson. No, your senses are being wooed by the delightful scent of lotus blossoms and the wafting aroma of something slightly more intoxicating. Oh, the Lotus Eaters! They lounge about as if they've just discovered the ultimate recipe for relaxation, mixing it smoothly with a pinch of carelessness. Picture them, splayed out on the sand, hair tousled by the gentle sea breeze, eyes glazed over like donuts,
completely absorbed in the art of doing absolutely nothing. It's like one giant modern-day retreat where everyone brought their finest long-sleeve shirts and maracas, but realized upon arrival they forgot all ambitions and life plans. You can almost hear their collective sighs of relief, echoing through the air like a jazz musician finally hitting that sweet note. Curious, you strolled toward the unaware lotus-eaters who seemed to wear their bliss like a badge of honor, cocooned in their daydreams. You might wonder, what's that luscious fruit they keep chomping on, and why does
It look like a cloud? Ah, fear not, for that is the fabled lotus, a fruit so arcane that one bite could make even the most devoted sailor forget all thoughts of home and tentatively plotted reunion, like leaving a party early for some me time. As you ponder the prospects, you pluck a lotus from its leafy refuge. You take a bite, and whoa! You are hit by a wave of euphoria. Suddenly, your life choices reek of boring schedules and alarm clocks you couldn't bear the thought of restarting. Seriously, who needs a 9 to 5 when you could be lounging on a beach, frolicking through your own daydreams? And there you go, slipping into a delightful stupor, swiftly drifting away from reality. It's like that odd day when you miscalculated your Netflix binge, and suddenly the sun's going down without you. Each bite takes you deeper into a trance, as you wave goodbye to thoughts of Odysseus, Ithaca, and especially those bills due at the end of the month. There's no Wi-Fi here, no grocery shopping, and above all, no responsibilities. What a dream. Yet, in the back of your mind, a faint voice seems to whisper, "Hey, don't you have someone waiting for you, tending to your livestock, returning to your ship, the one Poseidon is still cranky about?" But your brain is having none of it. In fact, it's throwing an all-night dance party that's way more immediate and enjoyable than, say, worrying about other people's opinions or plotting a safer course back home. But let's not ignore the mora of this delightful tale. Just as Odysseus and some crew are succumbing to this lush paradise, one heroic thought flickers. It dawns upon you that, just like that delightful chocolate cake you promised yourself you wouldn't finish, this bliss is only temporary. One does not simply nibble on endless lotus blossoms without there being repercussions, not unless you fancy yourself living life in an eternal sunbeam of forgetfulness. So as you sit back, tasting the sweetness that lulls you into blissful lethargy, your thoughts drift deeper, blissfully ignoring the alarm bells ringing somewhere in your subconscious, which is just a touch alarming. And there you have it, my friends. A little foreshadowing for our dear Odysseus, because we all know that wandering in a state of bliss while ignoring the raging currents of real life can lead to mild chaos, or perhaps some furious divine intervention. One might say the recipe for an epic misadventure isn't found among the lotus, but rather in the moments when responsibility starts creeping back like that ever-looming Sunday evening reality check. Now breathe deeply. Let those visions float lazily in your mind, and let a peaceful slumber carry you away from this unproductive chaos, while Odysseus figures out how to untangle himself from yet another historical mishap. Sleep well. Chapter 16. The Charming Dinner Party with Circe. Hey guys, welcome back to another whimsical journey through time, where the past is more bizarre than a cat wearing a monocle. Tonight we find ourselves facing a divine mystery even more perplexing than trying to figure out why avocado toast is now considered gourmet. Yes, you guessed it. We're about to dive into the enchanting drama of Circe, the sorceress whose culinary skills would make any food critic beg for mercy. Before we teleport to Circe's living room, I invite you to go ahead and gently tap that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment, but only if you actually enjoy this. No pressure. No one wants to feel like they're forced to compliment their weird cousin's art project. Now, let's dim those lights, maybe even flick a fan on for full atmospheric effect, and get comfortable, my friends. Imagine your perfect slumber position, curled like a contented bug in a rug, or sprawled out like a starfish that just won a swimming competition. Close your eyes and reflect. If you lived in the late Bronze Age, would you have been a crafty hero, dodging warriors and shipwrecks, kind of like trying to find a parking spot in a crowded mall? Or would you have been a charming rogue, somehow always getting lost on the way to the snack table? Congratulations! You've just woken up in a stylish, albeit slightly chaotic abode on the island of Aiaia, where the walls shimmer like a bored sea, and the furnishings might just laugh back at any guests trying to claim superiority. Now, let's set the scene. The air is thick with enchantment, almost like walking into a bakery where someone swapped the flour for something mystical and ill-advised. Candles flicker, casting shadows that dance on the walls as you hear the delightful sizzle snap of something cooking in the corner. Is it a mere dinner, or perhaps the world's first attempt at a witch-themed cooking show? You walk into Circe's hall, the aroma winding around you like a fluffy, friendly snake. It's kind of comforting, but also unsettling. Sort of like your buddy's new perfume that smells interesting, but you're not quite sure if it's supposed to. It's at this moment you realize you may want to be packing a snack from your own pantry and not risking whatever offerings are about to grace your table. Do you hear that? The laughter and chatter of Circe's half-transformed guests. Men who were previously proud warriors, but are now, thanks to an errant draught of magic, reduced to grunting swine. Yes, they're grunting, snorting, and generally exhibiting behaviors that would make adulting seem much more desirable. You cautiously peer over at the table and, oh, it's an extravagant buffet of dishes so colorful they make a peacock look dreary. Just imagine, a giant feast laid out like a carnival exploded in the kitchen. Now, before we dive headfirst into the buffet, or onto the floor in some cases, let's take a moment to admire Circe's impressive hospitality. Henceforth dubbed Circe's culinary chaos, this gathering includes roasted beast, shiny odd-shaped fruits, and something bubbling ominously in a large pot. Yes, bubbling pot. Always a classic, the culinary equivalent of a Steve Jobs product launch. You can't quite place what's in it, but it looks like the kind of dish that should come with a warning label. Caution. May cause spontaneous dancing or existential crises. Why do these men take their dinners so lightly, you wonder? Ah, yes, when your former essence has been replaced by a lovable oink. I guess you don't pay mind to table manners. Ever tried eating soup with a snout? Circe must have thought drinking from troughs was more on trend than a fancy chalice. So here's where the hilarity escalates. As you try to engage them in conversation,
you soon realize they can only respond in enthusiastic grunts, like a gathering of confused cows trying to figure out modern art. It's the sort of awkward dinner party moment that makes you secretly wish you'd stayed home for Netflix and takeout. But not to worry, dear friend. Circe saunters around, playing the gracious host, despite the swine-like antics unfolding. Just imagine her, a sorceress juggling cauldrons and smirking knowingly, realizing that men, once noble heroes, now think scratching behind their ears is an acceptable dance move. It's the complete opposite of a quaint dinner with Grandma, where the pets wouldn't dare upstage the roast chicken. And as you sip on something questionable, definitely not FDA approved, your thoughts wander. Did I just stumble into a bachelor party for bores? Should I be offering them a round of slop, or making awkward small talk about hunting merits? A conundrum indeed. Yet, despite the magical chaos enveloping you, you can't help but chuckle at this unexpected twist of fate. Who knew a dinner party could consist of transitory pigmen, wildly bad conversationalists, and magical brews that could very well be the world's first potion-infused craft beer? As Circe serves another round of enchanting hors d'oeuvres, which may or may not be pork rinds by now, you realize that this idyllic yet absurd soiree isn't just a merry gathering. It's a prelude to Odysseus and his men, who somehow believe they can manage the situation without completely becoming the appetizers themselves. And with that, the delightful chaos continues to unfold, leaving you half chuckling and half praying for some divine intervention. But isn't that the beauty of myth? A mad swirl of magic, mischief, and the occasional porky laugh, reminding us that sometimes life is just a series of bizarre, sleepy dinner parties where the guest list could use a little bit of a makeover. So, as you bask in the comforting absurdity of Circe's charm, let those thoughts swirl in your mind while the magical flavors dance across your senses. Tuck yourself in, embrace the laughter, and let this enchanting tale carry you into a peaceful slumber. You'll need it. For now, the story is just beginning. Chapter 17. The Epic Quest for the Bottom of the Ocean. Sort of. Hey guys, welcome back to another mildly interesting plunge into the whims and wobbles of history, where myths are more tangled than your headphones after a long day in your pocket. Tonight, we embark on a nautical adventure that's smoother than a cat in a sunbeam, albeit one that's slightly less reliable than your GPS on a road trip through Ohio. Yes, we're drifting into the world of Odysseus, the only hero to have survived the gods' wrath, maybe because he learned the tricks of the trade from the most questionable travel vloggers. Now, before we hoist the sails and set course for the fantastical, don't forget to give that like button a gentle poke, subscribe, and drop a comment. Only if you're feeling as enthusiastic as a toddler discovering their reflection in a pond. As we prepare for our cruise past mythological monsters, let's dim the lights, turn on a fan to mimic that salty sea breeze, and make ourselves comfy. Imagine, if you will, if you lived in the late Bronze Age, would you have rocked a toga like it was the latest trend, or would you still be trying to figure out how to wear sandals without a wardrobe malfunction? Would you think twice about sailing into the unknown, Or would you leap in head first, hoping to prove that this was all just a super intense episode of Survivor, Mythological Edition? Congratulations! You've just woken up in a bygone era where people believed in gods, monsters, and were absolutely convinced that offering a black ram to the ocean was a solid plan. Seriously, the only thing more absurd than this sacrifice is your coworker insisting they can fry an egg on a pavement in mid-July. Let's set the scene. The salty aroma of the sea mingles with the musty scent of long-forgotten grumbling beneath the waves. Odysseus stands on the shoreline, determined to dig a trench deeper than the existential dread you felt last Monday. Armed with nothing more than a shovel and a questionable grasp of best practices for summoning shades from the underworld, he carefully carves into the sand like a toddler playing with Etsy-quality beach toys. With each scoop of sand, the air grows heavier with anticipation, and perhaps a tad more ridiculous. You can almost hear Poseidon up there, rolling his eyes, asking, "Really, buddy? Another ritual? What is this, a budget mythological spa day?" But Odysseus isn't deterred. Oh no. In a burst of overconfidence that would make your friend's Instagram hiking posts seem modest, he sacrifices a couple of pristine black rams, painting the scene with as much flair as a Broadway musical number set in an abandoned barn. We all know that blood is potent magic, but seriously, Odysseus must have missed the memo about moderation. Meanwhile, as the warm crimson seeps into the trench, the ripples of the past awaken, like an overly enthusiastic former co-worker crashing a happy hour. The shades of the departed begin to arise, their whispers fluttering through the wind like your neighbor's soggy barbecue invitation. All they want is a sip of the good stuff, blood, because apparently nothing says, "Let's converse about your life decisions," quite like offering a dead animal on a beach at midnight. Imagine this scene. A whole line of ghostly shades pressing forward, desperate for a taste of curiosity served up in a wineglass. It's like a very exclusive club that forgot to check IDs of the door. "Oh, you wish to speak? Well, sign here on this blood-splattered parchment, then take a number. Confidence is key." It's a cacophony of forgotten dreams and unfinished business, so much so that even a mime wouldn't know where to begin. You'd half expect them to start arguing over whose turn it is to possess Odysseus at this point. "I call dibs on the hero, you Pythagorean ghost." This charade continues until Odysseus, let's give the man credit, finally gets it. In the midst of dodgy supernatural negotiations and the occasional existential crisis, he manages to wrangle the attention of the dead as they tumble forward, eager to chat about their regrets. It's like an open mic night for the dearly departed, and Odysseus is glowing of the thought of finally getting answers to all those questions that never got asked. So, what do you think? Should I have become a goat herder instead? It's surreal, like trying to decipher an artist's interpretation of a salad at a trendy restaurant. The shades brush against Polyphemus, the one-eyed giant, awkwardly stumbling over his stories about being outsmarted by a clever little hero. Remember when I got tricked by a nobody? That was a low point. But don't worry. I've written a book about it. Title, Big Mistakes, Small Heroes. As the night wears on in this bizarre nautical strategy meeting, the whispers of the deceased continue to usurp all sense of normalcy. They've got complaints that range from everyday grievances to major life decisions. More drama than a reality show reunion special. With every shade Odysseus speaks to, you can't help but feel like the walls of reality are bending ever so slightly. Although in this case, they might be leaning against a very tired promise of adventure. So as night rolls on and the sea serenades its mysterious magic, just remember, every great hero has to dig a trench, both literally and metaphorically, at some point. And it's not all just about fighting monsters and sailing boats. Sometimes it's about counseling the utterly confused past, and figuring out if sacrificing a ram was truly the best way to get ahead on your mythological quest. And so, as Odysseus contemplates the shades, the weight of history presses softly against the shores of today. All aboard the ship of laughter and sleepiness, and on to the next twist in our tale. Chapter 18. The Mournful Shade of a Hero. Hey guys, welcome back to our cozy little corner of myth, where the past is as absurd as that one friend you had in college who insisted they could survive solely on kale chips and faith. Tonight, we're diving deeper than the ocean to uncover the charmingly tragic tale of Achilles, the hero who would rather be a farmhand in the land of the living than rock the title of revered king among the shadows. Now, before you cozy up with a wool blanket and prepare to drift off into the soothing currents of antiquity, don't forget to give that like button a gentle prod, like you're trying to coax a grumpy cat from under the couch. And if you feel inclined, maybe share your thoughts in the comments below. Though be warned, they might read less like, "Tell me more of Achilles," and more like, "Do you think the ancient Greeks really wore togas to grocery store runs?" So, I invite you to dim the lights, turn on a fan to capture that breezy ambiance of a summer night, and get snugly comfy. Imagine yourself wandering through the late Bronze Age, where following a chariot in dusty sandals is practically a workout routine, and the biggest fashion faux pas is not having enough bronze armor glinting in the sun. Now, let's ponder. If you found yourself in ancient Greece, would you argue over the latest gossip about the gods more passionately than your book club debates who to cast as Harry Potter? Would you believe that a talking horse managing a horse-drawn carriage is the ancient Greek version of riding in style? And seriously, would you dive into a war with Trojans just to prove you could win a game of cooties? Congratulations! You've just woken up in a sun-drenched land filled with battles, feasts, and an overwhelming number of half-naked gods arguing about who gets the last fig. The air smells of burnt offerings and potentially bad romantic choices, and it's getting a little crowded on Olympus. You appear to have stumbled upon a scene unlike any other, a lamenting Achilles, all while you stand there wondering if maybe, just maybe, you should have stayed in bed. Picture this: the great warrior Achilles, with a stature so imposing that even the Mediterranean waves shy away from his presence, emerges from the gloomy depths of Hades like he's auditioning for The Voice. His face tells 1,000 tales, each filled with more angst than a teenager's diary. "Oh, woe is me," he intones, dramatically sweeping a hand across his chest. "To be a poor farmer amongst the living, rather than endure this haunting throne of shades. Can anyone relate? His bits of sorrow are punctuated by rustling echoes that sound suspiciously like the wind chuckling at his misfortune. As the ocean waves crash behind you, threatening to steal the spectacle by carrying away a seagull with questionable taste in snacks, Achilles explains his predicament. Here's a guy who might be more celebrated for his recovery skills than his fighting prowess. But alas, he's just the shade of a once mighty man longing for simplicity. Imagine, if you will, a robust hero pining for the humble life of the pastoral realm. At least farming, Achilles laments, comes with less backstory drama. Just me, the land, and a few goats that won't sass me about my decisions. The irony stings like a bee that was so well fed it decided to become a floating annoyance at your picnic. Here he is, the self-proclaimed breaker of Trojan horses and hearts, wishing he could swap aesthetic armor for a faded tunic and a plow. You can hear the thoughts swirling in the air. It's like wishing your life was a sitcom where you could sip tea without worrying about getting stabbed in the back. And Achilles' struggles mirror your own, perhaps while waiting for your plants to recover from last week's lack of sunlight, and the mystery of how no one noticed the family of feral cats just moved into your garden. Next to the shades mourning their own glolyges, you can't help but appreciate Achilles' melodrama. There's a certain universal truth nestled here, like finding a $20 bill in your pants from last season's wardrobe. Do we all feel like Achilles at times, searching high and low for simplicity, while tangled in a web of former glories and misplaced ambitions? The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sands of eternity. And here stands Achilles, debating the weight of heroic fame against the glory of a good harvest. It's almost as if every shade surrounding him nods in agreement, swaying like an audience at an ancient Greek concert, wishing they too had invested in a more grounded life choice. Finally, Achilles sighs. Perhaps I'll take up farming on the other side, when they hand out turnips instead of jealousy and regret. It's almost soothing, a thought that the greatest hero of Troy finds solace in a plow, and maybe a few embarrassing crop failures will become his new adventure. Because even in their eternal state, these shades still contemplate life's mysteries. Sometimes farming might just be the answer for the drama-riddled soul. And so, amid the swirling winds of melancholy and laughter, we learn that even the mightiest can yearn for the mundanity of living. There, on the shores of Hades, dealing with the existential crisis of wandering souls, Achilles stands stoic and absurdly relatable, delivering a comedic twist on the quest for simplicity amidst a sea of chaos. Tomorrow, you may wake up in the bright chaos of your own life, but for tonight, sail away into the comforting embrace of sleep. Chapter 19. The Siren's Silken Serenade. Hey guys, welcome back to our cozy corner of myth, where tonight's expedition will sweep you off your feet more than that time you tried to impress a date with your cooking skills, only to serve burnt toast and water instead. Yes, tonight we're diving into the treacherous waters of ancient tales, where the only thing more dangerous than a hero's hubris is a trio of bird women singing like they just won an audition for a divine singing contest, urging our valiant Odysseus toward eternal doom. Before we unfurl the sails and drift into this soothing yet slightly anxiety-inducing narrative, don't forget to give that like button a gentle tap, as if you're trying not to scare a cat that has just decided to trust you for the first time. And if you enjoy this journey as much as I hope you do, feel free to drop a comment below. But do keep it light. No one wants a lengthy discourse on whether Odysseus had a gym membership in the underworld. Now, I invite you to dim those lights, maybe not too dim. We wouldn't want you wandering into a chair. Put on a fluffy blanket and get snugly comfy. Let's ponder. If you were sailing through the Aegean Sea, would you dress up as a human buffet and hope the mythical creatures would take one delightful bite? Would you spend your time debating whether the local fish prefer being called the catch of the day over that poor creature that got cooked? And if you could hear a melody that promised the secret to happiness, would you trust it? Or would you rather stick to those tiny, sad gym classes taught by an ex-soldier? Congratulations! You've just woken up in the late Bronze Age, a time not only characterized by its lavish feasts and divine madness, but also booming with strategic plotting and unasked-for adventures. You might want to adjust your toga, though. It's possible that last night's dance-off with fellow adventurers turned into a tragic wardrobe malfunction that has now left your dignity on the sea floor. So here we are, Odysseus, the cleverest of mortals, bound to the mast of his ship, struggling furiously against his bonds, arms wriggling like he's auditioning for a part in a slapstick comedy. The air is heavy with salty spray as the ship navigates turbulent waters. As if life's daily problems weren't enough, now our hero is facing a new foe, sirens. Imagine the crooners of the ancient world, but instead of performing at a cozy tavern, they've set up shop on rocky islands, armed with songs so enchanting they could make a statue weep. Now let's set the scene. The sun glimmers off the rolling waves like 1,000 flickering fireflies, and the wind whispers secrets that no one ever asked to learn. The sirens, these seductive, feathered women, are perched upon cliffs, their voices intertwining like strands of golden yarn. You can almost taste the sweetness in the breeze as they sing. It's like they've been gifted the keys to humanity's deepest desires, and they just can't resist using them. "Come closer, brave Odysseus," they sing, their tones draping over the air like a warm, cozy blanket on a chilly evening. You can hear them charmingly pitch about hidden knowledge and secrets of the world, and for a moment there's a tantalizing allure. Doesn't it have that familiar ring? Like the scent of cinnamon rolls wafting through an open window when you're on a diet you just decided to start yesterday. You can practically feel your willpower crumbling, like that missed yoga class schedule. But there's our dear Odysseus, right? The man who once wore a clever grin that could rival the sun, now trapped, firmly stuck to his mast as if it were a therapy session gone wrong. He shakes his head, desperately recalling the sage advice he received earlier, something about resisting temptation, much like how your stomach resists following a salad's thinly veiled promise of satisfaction. Only here there's an existential crisis at stake. Succumb to enchanting voices, or continue sailing into the unknown. The melodies rise and fall, weaving tales of long-lost loves and treasures beyond imagination. "Hey, Odysseus, one siren calls, her voice smoother than Greek olive oil. "Wouldn't you like to know how to make a killer hummus? Or maybe how to knit the perfect toga?" Another wonders aloud, half serious, half teasing, as her feathers glisten in the sun. "We've even got your favorite honeyed figs over here." Imagine it. You're helplessly gripping the mast, sweat trickling down your forehead, as if you just overheard your favorite author was visiting a nearby city. The pull of their siren song dances in your ears, thick and intoxicating, a sweet blend of temptation and calamity. Come join us, Odysseus. Think about it. A life with no responsibilities, no heroic expectations, just a little frolicking on the beach. Yet, amidst this fantastic charm, it's not without its worries. Because, let's be honest, who wouldn't question the hospitality of a few feathered, half-naked women singing about cheese and sunlight? Odysseus battles harder against his restraints, more determined than a cat avoiding a bath. Who knows what kind of hazy nonsense their sugary voices could lead him into? Perhaps he'd suddenly find himself embroiled in a dance-off with Dionysus, or worse, stuck with a recipe book titled 1001 Ways to Bake Sea Snails. But eventually, with a mighty effort, he pulls himself back from the edge of temptation, quite literally, to the frustrations of sea travel and the harrowing nature of his quest. How is a warrior to contend with the absurdity of life when faced with the reality that a lovely tune could take him from hero to hypothetical seafood platter faster than you can say, "Well, that backfired"? So there he is, heroically tied down like a sailor refusing to admit he forgot his lunch back on shore, stuck between the gorgeous allure and the lurking danger. Odysseus draws upon all the tales of wisdom he's gleaned over the years. His trials are not just of the sea, but within his resolve. The struggle is palpable and quite comical, as he faces the enchanting sirens like one might face a buffet of forbidden pastries after a month of kale and quinoa. And as the boat glides forward, you can almost hear him muttering, "Why did I think this was going to be a relaxing vacation?" Little does he know, though. He's merely at the beginning of what will be one of the greatest adventures ever told. And even if it all seems absurdly comical, like trying to juggle while riding a unicycle on a tightrope, who wouldn't nod off, lulled by the sound of laughter amidst the waves? As he sails away from the sirens, Odysseus only has one lingering thought. Perhaps next time he'll invest in proper earplugs. Sleep tight, dear listener, and may your dreams drift like ships upon calm waters. Chapter 20. A not-so-casual stroll between a rock and a hard place. Hey guys, welcome back to our rollicking boat tour through the seas of myth, where the stakes are higher than the bar tabs at a Greek tavern on a Friday night. Tonight, we're navigating treacherous waters that are about as relaxing as a surprise visit from your in-laws. As if dodging a giant whirlpool weren't enough, our buddy Odysseus has an engaging meet and greet arranged with Scylla, a six-headed monster who looks like someone mashed up a shark and a very cranky octopus. Before we set sail into this delightful chaos, do the usual. Like, subscribe, and comment below. But only if you actually enjoy this. Unless, of course, you prefer shouting into the void. We wouldn't want your wisdom lost in the swirling depths of cyberspace, after all. Now, picture this. You're on a ship with a crew of rowdy sailors, all more brawn than brains, set against the backdrop of the Aegean Sea, which is stunningly picturesque one minute and turns into a watery battleground the next. As you squint into the horizon, wondering if that's a beautiful sunset or just your imagination playing tricks on you, consider this. If you had to choose between a sunbath and a storm, which would you pick? And what about sharing your last piece of bread with a six-headed monster? Would you butter it first? And whom would you write to, hoping for rescue? A sea god, or your local pizza place? Congratulations. You've just woken up in a world where all your bad decisions are floated to the surface like a fish that should have never been deep-fried. It's the late Bronze Age, and the sea is your immediate future. Equal parts adventure, and the kind of horror movie where you forget your lifeboat is just a fancy wooden box. As our hero Odysseus grips the ship's wheel, the air is filled with the salty tang of adventure and a hint of impending doom. Kind of like finding a vegetable in your fridge that was fresh 6 weeks ago. Swells rise like anxious colleagues after one too many coffee breaks, and as if conjured from the depths of divine mischief, the sinister whirlpool Charybdis looms on one side. It's the kind of whirlpool that could make a great vacation spot if it weren't known for devouring ships and, souls. As the ship glides closer to Charybdis, which sounds more like a dramatic soap opera than a fearsome whirlpool, you can almost hear it gurgling contentedly, just waiting for its next snack, like a gluttonous toddler eyeing the cookie jar. Meanwhile, on the other side, there's Scylla, lurking with enough heads to throw a party, if that party was exclusively composed of doomed sailors, of course. Oh, great, you think. I'm stuck between a rock and a watery place. Funny enough, you almost feel a sense of camaraderie with Odysseus, our man in the middle, as he squints between the monstrous threats with the kind of determination normally reserved for someone spotting a seriously good parking space after 20 minutes of circling around the block. Suddenly, you find yourself in Odysseus's shoes, figuratively, of course, unless you love the smell of seawater and regret. Scylla's 6 heads sway like overzealous bobbleheads at a football game, each mouth gaping wider than your average sailor's excuse for why he forgot to do the dishes. Picture it, each head eyeing the crew, which might look more like appetizers than comrades right now. The atmosphere thickens. You can practically taste the panic, sour as curdled milk. As the ship inched closer to danger, one of Scylla's heads darts out, and for a split second you contemplate whether you'd rather face death by whirlpool or get snatched by a head like some grotesque piñata. Spoiler, both scenarios sound appealing, until you remember you haven't even had a proper breakfast yet. Odysseus, ever the resourceful and remarkably calm fellow in a state of sheer chaos, shouts instructions to his crew. "Row like your lives depend on it," he bellows. And honestly, it's hard not to chuckle. Rowing as if your future depended on it feels alarmingly similar to my last Groupon experience. A bit of hope, mixed with an imminent disaster, where you question your choices while trying not to drown. Imagine trying to come up with a clever response while having 6 heads shrieking and chomping all around you. Not the kind of job interview you'd typically choose. Your heart races faster than a pigeon spotting a crop of popcorn, and you wonder if you might just roll off the ship into the welcoming embrace of Charybdis instead. After all, it's hard to stay committed to the struggle when there are whirlpools waiting to lovingly claim you as their own. But just as you think Odysseus and his dreams of a tropical paradise might be squished faster than a dish of baked tomatoes, our clever hero makes a decision. He thinks, why take on all 6 heads when I can just deal with one at a time? It's probably the most reasonable thought he's had since he decided to listen to the sirens. And perhaps it's the ancient version of don't tackle everything at once, prioritize. So with a sideways glance, he shouts something that sounds suspiciously like, "Get it together, crew." It's a noble moment, infused with a sense of absurdity. After all, facing down mythical monsters and whirlpools just doesn't bring the kind of comic relief you need after a long day of trying to survive in the ancient world. As the ship channels through, dodging teeth and gurgling waters, you can almost hear the ancient Greek equivalent of a sitcom laugh track. With each man's determination, the crew's frenzied rowing transforms from a desperate plea into something resembling a terrible dance. Think of modern-day line dancing, but set against the backdrop of impending doom. And somewhere deep in your heart, you're left wondering if the human experience has always been played for laughs. Or if tonight you've simply signed up for one epic sailing blunder. So, dear listener, rest easy tonight. May your dreams be filled with daring ventures and the quiet realization that life, with all its frights, is one wild ride worth enjoying. Preferably from a cozy boat that's not wedged between a whirlpool and a monster. Sleep tight. And may your adventures be just mildly interesting enough to let you drift into deeper dreams. Chapter 21. The crew's cosmic culinary catastrophe. Hey guys, welcome back to our quirky odyssey through ancient Greek mythology, where the plots twist more than a pretzel at a carnival. Tonight, we're taking a detour from sea monsters and swashbuckling to a moment so tense and ridiculous that you'll wonder if the crew of Odysseus is auditioning for a reality cooking show. Cooking with gods. What could go wrong? Before we dive headfirst into this culinary calamity, do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and comment. But only if you genuinely enjoy this or have a burning desire to hear your wisdom echoed back through the digital abyss. Now that we've taken care of that, grab your travel pillow, dim the lights, and settle in for the wildest ride this side of Mount Olympus. Picture this. You've just rolled out of bed in the late Bronze Age. Your body is likely as sore as a 3-day-old leftover, and your closest friends are a bunch of starving sailors who resemble scarecrows after a storm. Ever thought about how awkward it is to be stranded on an island with a group that would rather eat each other than share their last piece of bread? If you think 6 degrees of separation is tough today, just imagine being a crew member of Odysseus, where the only thing separating you from culinary disaster is a fleeting sense of camaraderie and some seriously dwindling rations. Imagine waking up to the fragrant aroma of, wait, never mind, there's no coffee brewing, only the distinct scent of desperation. You're surrounded by salty air and nervous murmurs, which makes it sound like you're at a family reunion where someone just cracked a terrible joke. So, which one of us is going to be tonight's main course? Might as well be the unspoken question in an atmosphere thick enough to slice with a dull sword. Congratulations! You've just woken up on an island that's basically a buffet for a very cranky sun god, Helios, who is definitely not in the mood for your team's shenanigans. Right now, you're feeling the kind of hunger that could inspire a master chef to create a Michelin star-worthy meal, or in this case, lead to a group decision so monumentally dumb that even the gods above would do a double take. Now, let's set the scene. Picture Odysseus, a tad sweaty from praying and trying to squeeze last-minute favor from a deity, like squeezing the last bit of toothpaste from the tube. Desperate and a bit chaotic. He's hoping for divine intervention, while his crew, with grumbling bellies echoing louder than his prayers, sees the silhouette of Helios's sacred cattle grazing happily in the distance. The decision might have been prompted by the sound of one crew member's stomach growling ferociously, so much so that it could have been mistaken for a wild beast. Then, in a moment akin to saying, "Hey, let's run a marathon after not training at all," one of the sailors might suggest, "How about we roast those cows?"
Let's be honest. Helios hasn't exactly been sending us chocolates and thank you cards. Because nothing says we value our lives like preparing a sacred barbecue on a flare-up of divine wrath. So now you're in the thick of it. As the sailors sneak away to butcher the sacred cattle, you can practically hear the plot thickening, like a bowl of oatmeal left on the stove a moment too long. Who knew a simple idea for supper would lead to a meal that could kick off a war? If only Odysseus had known that when he said, "Let's eat well, boys," he was actually hosting a sacrificial feast that would send the gods into a frenzy, like they just lost their favorite game of chess. The crew, fueled by pangs of hunger and their rapidly dwindling common sense, is slicing into prime sacrificial beef, while Helios, lounging above like an overcooked steak on a sunny afternoon, is justifiably furious. I mean, how would you feel if someone treated your prized cattle like they were simply ingredients in a dinner salad? It's like watching someone throw your grandmother's best china into a blender. Classy, right? As the aroma wafts through the air, invoking a vibe that could be mistaken for starting a party in a realm where parties are strictly forbidden, everything explodes into chaos. You can almost hear the crickets chirping in discontent as the cattle roast slowly over an open fire, while the crew tries to balance their feasting and their fear of divine retribution, also known as the classic Greek dilemma, eat but angst. Now imagine Helios noticing from above, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. Are they really eating my cows? How rude! If ever there were an uproar in the celestial kitchen, this would be it. It's the mythological equivalent of your neighbor throwing a wild, unsanctioned party while you're trying to enjoy a quiet evening. But alas, the sailors, now fully committed to their culinary misadventure, consume every last morsel. They've crossed the point of no return, shoving beef down like it's the last supper before a grand finale. And somewhere in the depths of the cosmos, as the wise gods look down, they must be thinking, talk about a recipe for disaster. So, dear listener, as you drift off tonight, imagine this absurd moment in history where divine wrath meets human folly. May your dreams be filled with slightly less chaos and a tad more pastoral tranquility.
although you might find yourself spotting a sun god's cattle now and then. Sleep tight, and remember, next time you're faced with a tough decision, maybe skip the barbecue.
Chapter 22. Odysseus and the Nymphs' Quirky Quarrels. Hey guys, welcome back to our wonderfully wacky journey through the land of myths, where the gods are either feuding or tossing absurd challenges your way. Tonight, we plunge into a tale more tangled than your last relationship, Odysseus's unexpected 7-year vacation on the lush island of Ogygia. Yes, a tropical paradise where the sunscreen is made from crushed seashells and the airlines, well, let's just say they're still sorting out their frequent flyer miles. Before we kick back and get cozy, maybe with a heroic cup of, I don't know, ambrosia, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment, but only if your love for ancient Greek shenanigans is as strong as Odysseus's determination to get home. Now settle in, dim those lights, crank up that fan, and get ready to drift back in time. Now imagine waking up, only to find yourself lounging under a palm tree in Ogygia. I bet you're wondering, what's for breakfast? Is there a doorbell? Do nymphs have a Yelp rating? And most importantly, how do you politely tell a nymph you prefer your morning coffee black rather than served with a side of eternal life? Welcome to the complexities of ancient immortality. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1200 BCE on an island that collected sunshine like hoarders collect old newspapers. Ogygia, home to the enchantingly beautiful nymph Calypso, who's got more charm than a Greek wedding and the persuasive skills of a used car salesman. But here's the kicker. Calypso isn't just your run-of-the-mill gorgeous island gal. No, she's set on keeping you here forever, offering you all the delights of life, not unlike that time a friend promised to share their pizza just as they devoured the last slice. So buckle up. Picture lush greenery around you, the sound of waves crashing, and Calypso trying her best to convince you that eternal life is wonderful, as if that's a normal Tuesday night conversation. Remember, she's been on this island so long she could probably write a best-selling book titled 101 Ways to Lure Heroes, Recipes Included. Now let's explore this enticing little slice of paradise, shall we? Let's talk about the little joys of being held captive. Oops, I meant being offered a life of leisure on this fabled island. First off, the atmosphere feels like a perpetual vacation. You wake up to the gentle sound of waves and a mild breeze, reminiscent of what it feels like to be wrapped in a giant cotton candy cloud. How dreamy. But wait, don't get too comfortable. There's a catch lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce, like a cat watching a laser pointer. Your days are filled with sumptuous feasts under canopies of palm fronds, with Calypso serving a spread that would make the best Greek chefs weep with joy. Fresh fruits? Check. Wine that flows freely like gossip at a family reunion? Double check. But each meal comes with a side of abandon your wife and live forever with me, which feels less more and more like high-pressure sales tactics. Imagine being serenaded with soft music while simultaneously wrestling with the decision of whether you want eternal life or to return to a somewhat noisy home with your wife Penelope. Tough choice, right? And let's talk about Calypso. Picture a personal guide who's part dream girl,
part middle manager with a dash of eternal life sales pitch. Isn't this lovely? This paradise has been good for me. You could be part of it forever. And here you are, imagining the life you left behind, probably weighed down with unpaid bills, and a wife who definitely didn't sign up for an ongoing "life is sweet" campaign. You can almost hear Penelope's sigh from the other side of the ocean. Meanwhile, you're caught in a whimsical tug-of-war between the siren call of love and your sense of responsibility. You'd think by now Odysseus would have figured it all out. Good old clever Odysseus, known for his quick thinking and crafty plans. But alas, every time he thinks he might like to stroll down the path toward home, Calypso sweetly reminds him that eternity with her is a pretty convincing offer. Sure, Odysseus, you could be back to a life filled with episodic drama and those pesky unshakable suitors trying to win Penelope's heart. Oh, but can you get another coconut smoothie? Now let's unpack this further. Being held captive by a nymph sounds pretty cozy, doesn't it? Until you realize it has all the charm of a stay-at-home vacation, where you become a plant on a sunny windowsill, but someone forgot to water you. Those fleeting moments of bliss come hand in hand with surfacing regrets and yearning glances out at the horizon. It's like binge-watching an addictive series, knowing you could get up and leave at any moment, but hey, the dramatic cliffhangers just keep pulling you in. Ultimately, dear listener, as you find yourself journeying with Odysseus through this extravagant and absurd scenario, filled with divine entanglements and overly enthusiastic sales pitches, remember, you might drift off into dreams of nymphs and island getaways. Or you may wake up realizing that the true adventure is still out there, waiting on the couch, just like Penelope, pondering the wonders of grown-up responsibilities versus fantastical dilemmas. Sleep well, and may your nights be filled with fewer life decisions than Odysseus had to make under the watchful eye of Calypso. Chapter 23. Odysseus, Argos, and the Return of Whiskered Wisdom. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, as we sashay through the epic odyssey of our buddy Odysseus, we find ourselves at a moment cozier than your favorite fuzzy sweater. Only, instead of a warm hug, it's a bittersweet reunion that will tug at your heartstrings more than an agitated cat on a freshly laundered bedspread. In this chapter, we're kicking off back in Ithaca, where time seems to travel as slowly as a tortoise with a sleep schedule. Imagine an ordinary day, filled with extraordinary amounts of anticipation because Odysseus isn't just any guy. He's the Greek hero who took a long detour through the cosmos, battling some truly bizarre monsters and enduring agonizingly slow ferry rides. So take a moment, dim those lights, get comfy, and prepare for a tale that's more tender than a well-cooked piece of moussaka, all while channeling your inner couch potato. Now, before we dive deeper into this saga, let me ask you, ever tried sneaking back into your own home after a long vacation? How about sneaking in while disguised as a beggar? Now, imagine if your faithful pet, the only one who knew the real you, was standing there, looking as confused as someone trying to spin a globe with their eyes shut. Is your dog confused because it's been too long? Or simply because they've forgotten who feeds them? Spoiler alert, It's both. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1200 BCE. Picture it. Your beloved Ithaca, a place so familiar yet somehow different, like that old sweater that's gone a little bushy over the years. The air is laden with a floral scent, mingling with something that might be fresh bread or an overripe feta. You can never be too sure in the ancient world. And now, let's talk about Odysseus. He's home, grimy, weary, and missing a couple of complimentary nymph souvenir trinkets. Disguised as a humble beggar, a lifestyle choice that would score him epic points in today's low-key lifestyle trend. He's making his way through the threshold like a ninja who forgot his stealth training. He's sneaking through his familiar halls, trying to remember if his favorite chair is still there, or if Telemachus rearranged the whole place without consulting him. But wait, amidst all these sneaky shenanigans, there's Argos, the loyal dog, lying like a forgotten relic. Poor Argos, whose age shows as clearly as the dust gathering on an unwatched trophy. This once proud hound resembles more of a furry rug than a sleek beast of epic hero lore. Think about it. It's the kind of canine condition that makes you want to fluff him up with fairy dust and a can of premium dog food. Oh, but here's the kicker. The moment Argos catches a whiff of Odysseus, it's like he's just found the last slice of pizza at a party that wasn't even going to share it. Joy mixed with mild surprise. With a final feeble wag of the tail that resembles a wave of a feather
washcloth, Argos recognizes his master. He musters up the energy for one last salute, a heroic farewell, before slipping away into the realm of doggy dreams. Talk about a rousing reunion, with all the ooze of heartbreak wrapped in a stroll down memory lane. Now, how did Odysseus feel, standing there in the doorway wondering what yet another philosopher would do in this situation? Shall I give a speech paying homage to the most loyal creature ever, or just dramatically wipe a tear from my cheek? One might wonder what goes through a hero's mind while surrounded by a crowd of disillusioned suitors who wouldn't know loyalty if it came prancing in wearing a flashy cape. It's like returning home after a long weekend to find your place still in disarray, your plants noticeably drooping, and cats eyeing you like you've just played an epic game of hide-and-seek. What would you say as you nostalgically pet the disheveled remaining hairs of your creature companion? Would you even know how to handle the emotional aftermath of countless years apart? Would you lament about missed walks through the fields, while a gaggle of suitors in your lovely abode casually munches on your cheaper-than-cheese bread? Soon enough, Odysseus absorbs this wonderful chaos he once called home. No more nymphs of airy islands, no more fancy dinners served on shiny plates. Just the bittersweet reality of love lost and moments shared, fluffed with nostalgia and a hint of yearning. It's enough to make you want to adore your aging pup like a diamond in the rough, while trying to dissuade the nonsensical suitors from taking over your couch. So there you have it, dear listener. This is Ithaca, a place where dogs remember, heroes return, and, well, it can be just as messy as your closet after a midnight snack raid. As you drift into slumber, consider that life, no matter how bumpy, can hold far more richness than any polished adventure. So embrace the fluff, the nostalgia, and perhaps, just maybe, give your own loyal companion a scratch behind the ears before surrendering to sleep.
because, like Odysseus and Argus, you too could use a well-deserved rest. Good night.
Chapter 24. Suitors, Bows, and Mistaken Heroics. Hey guys, welcome back to another captivating episode of Ancient Chaos, where we explore how Odysseus, the original multitasker of the hero world, managed to pull off the mystical equivalent of putting on a pair of rollerblades and then attempting to conquer Mount Olympus. Tonight's tale is packed with drama, but don't worry, this isn't a Greek tragedy. It's more like a sitcom where everyone forgets their lines and the prop department has just one bow. Now, before we tumble down this rabbit hole of absurdity, let me ask you, ever had one of those moments where you thought you could outshine everyone at karaoke, only to realize your voice sounds like a coyote with a cold? Or how about pulling out a family recipe at a potluck, only to have your cousin show up with an Instagram-ready charcuterie board that makes your casserole look like a lumpy pancake? Yes, we've all been there, and so have our hapless suitors, preparing to embarrass themselves in front of Ithaca's finest. So dim those lights, grab your favorite snack, preferably something that doesn't require actual cooking, and get cozy. Picture this. You've just landed in 1200 BCE, wandering around Ithaca, a stunning island that has somehow missed the memo about cleanliness. You're surrounded by suitors, yes, that kind of suitors, who think they can win over a queen with self-importance and a side of stubbornness. Congratulations. You've struck gold in the "Who Wants to Marry a Disappearing Spouse" game. Only it's less who and more who the heck are these guys? Spoiler, they're the suitors, and they've turned Odysseus's home into something resembling a frat party gone rogue, complete with loud music no one wants to hear, and a plethora of questionable snacks, the kind you'd find wedged under a couch cushion. Now let's set the stage. It's chaos inside the palace, an atmosphere thicker than a bowl of oatmeal left over from last week's breakfast. These suitors, whose ego is bigger than their actual talent, decide to test their might on a massive bow, said to be so tough it probably needs its own bouncer. Imagine the scene. A bunch of men, all strutting about like roosters in the sun, flexing their muscles and yelling at each other about who could string this epic bow. It's like watching a reality show where everyone thinks they can be the next America's Next Top Bowstringer. But honestly, they struggle to even tackle a rubber band. Each attempt is met with failure, and generally a lot of grunting. Waddle like a penguin? Nope. Strung? Nope. Need a snack? Absolutely. You might wonder, how does one go from pounding the ground with pride to flopping onto the floor like a fish out of water? Just imagine it. Men gathering like it's some twisted Olympics, trying to lift the bow with all the grace of a hippo on roller skates. They grunt, they sweat, they puff out their chests. It's a spectacle meant for a reality TV series, Survivor, Ithaca edition. And then, when the crowd has settled into a comfortable rhythm of failure and self-delusion, in strolls Odysseus, the rags on his back, pulling off that
just woke up from a really long nap chic look. He glances at the bow, assessing its heft and size, with the nonchalance of someone contemplating whether to order a sandwich or a salad. Now, picture this. It's like watching a prodigy stroll into a karaoke bar packed with tone-deaf enthusiasts. Odysseus takes hold of the bow, the elegance of a maestro about to commence a symphony. He lifts it as if it were nothing more than a lightweight feather, effortlessly stringing it with the grace of a musician tuning their lyre. The suitors stare, their jaws hanging lower than a toddler's after an exceptionally messy dinner. At this moment, you might ponder, how did these seemingly formidable men regress into a gaggle of woodland creatures baffled by the concept of a bow? It's like inviting a bunch of your friends to a game night, only to discover they think Settlers of Catan is a new form of yoga. As Odysseus transforms from a rags-clad beggar to the hero of the hour, the suitors realize they've just been outplayed in an epic cosmic game. Suddenly, it's not just about stringing bows. It's about survival, cowardice, and good old-fashioned heroics packed with an absurd twist. So now you've arrived at the crux of the matter, dear listener. If a hero can return from a decade of chaos only to find himself embroiled in a contest of raw manliness over a bow, what does that say about our own endeavors? Perhaps we're all just out here trying to string our own metaphoric bows, dodging suitors of chaos while trying to avoid the embarrassing punctures from old friend misunderstandings and long-forgotten karaoke ambitions. And with a twang so satisfying it echoes for days, Odysseus proves once again that sometimes it's the quiet, unassuming guys in ragged clothing that know how to play the strings of life, literally and figuratively. Maybe as you drift off to sleep, think of Odysseus and his epic bow-stringing skills. After all, in life, just like with bows and arrows, sometimes it takes the right kind of aim to hit your target. And you're in luck. Your target tonight is a sweet, sweet slumber. So close those eyes and let your dreams take flight. Good night.
Chapter 25. Arrows, Chaos, and a Supposedly Noble Cuisine. Hey guys, welcome back to another delightful evening of mythic mayhem, where the only thing flying faster than arrows are the questionable dining choices of ancient Greeks. Tonight's tale is thicker than the olive oil they slather on everything. Watch as Odysseus, armed with more ambition than a cat stuck in a tree, takes on the brain-dead suitors who've turned his palace into the world's most chaotic all-you-can-eat buffet. You might wonder, how do these guys even get invited? Do they mistake hospitality for open invitation to overthrow your host? Maybe they thought they'd show up uninvited and binge-watch shows about eating all the food. Trust me, the gods are not the only ones ready for a good laugh, or a good face-palm tonight. So dim those lights, roll out your comfiest blanket, and maybe even grab that leftover slice of pizza that's been giving you side-eye all week. Picture yourself in late Bronze Age Aegean, where the weather is nice, but the air smells suspiciously like burnt lamb and unwashed hero musk. Yes, folks, you're wandering around Ithaca, a bustling hub overflowing with nobility, or, as I like to call it, a reality check for the generations. As you settle in, let me ask you, is there anything more awkward than realizing you've walked into a party
and everyone's already eaten the last of the salsa. Or, how about showing up for a meeting that no one remembers planning? Now take that to the extreme, because the suitors here have made a complete mockery of Odysseus's home, like it's the last night of college and no one remembers whose house this even is. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1200 BCE, and you're about to witness one of the greatest dinner catastrophes in history. A battle royale, where the main course is humiliation, and the only guests who'll leave with dignity are, spoiler alert, not the suitors. As arrows fly faster than your average Greek philosopher's barbs, let's talk about the suitors. Picture a gang of overconfident buffoons, each trying harder to prove they're worthy of Odysseus's throne and, ironically, his leftovers. It's like an exceptionally inept cooking show gone rogue, where the family recipe turns into flambe and ego. You can almost hear them shouting, "I'll take his riches. No, I deserve his throne." And just who did they think was going to judge? Fancy diners from Apollo's Food Network. Because if it were up to the gods, I think they'd prefer a dramatic cheese platter over pudding. Now, let's delve into the chaos inside the palace. The suitors have taken over, treating the kitchen like their personal food truck festival. You can practically smell the burnt offerings mingling with tones of overconfidence, gratitude, and desperation wafting through the air. Was it dinner or a sacrificial ceremony? The lines are blurring, my friend, as they throw down a feast more fit for a banquet than for a humble supper. Imagine a grand table, impossibly laden with platters of roasted meats, overflowing vineyards of wine, and more bread than a bakery run by a very generous deity. You might even spot a promise of extra virgin olive oil being poured like manna from heaven. Spoiler: the side dishes? Those would be soggy greens that the gods themselves would avoid. To kick off this glorious dinner debacle, Odysseus, now fully suited for action, stands in the shadows, his presence cloaked like a champion waiting for his moment to pounce. He then pulls off the ultimate entrance, not justified by ballads of old, but simply by unveiling the grand poetic truth of, yep, you guessed it, his super-sized bow. As arrows are loosed into the fray, think about it. Have you ever tried to personify chaos into your own living room while frantically looking for your TV remote? Or faced a critical decision of choosing between snack time and nap time, right when you were about to conquer the world? That, my dear dreamers, is precisely what all the suitors are experiencing as Odysseus turns their contest of embarrassment into an absolute fiasco, disguised as a competitive restaurant with no health code. With each arrow hitting its mark, thunk, thud, you can practically hear the radiating sighs of gods watching from Olympus. The suitors stumble back, gasping like fish out of water, as they find themselves in the spotlight of absurdity. A local culinary contest gone horrifically right. Each thunk is a direct commentary on their dining choices. Yes, your decisions have led to this moment, and frankly, they lack seasoning. As Odysseus strides victoriously through this bizarre narrative, realize that his journey is less about glory than it is about cleaning house, and bringing a bit of justice to the dinner table. With every successful shot, you might just picture him thinking, "This was easier than trying to turn Hermes into a professional toastmaster." As the dust settles and the last suitor toppled, Odysseus stands proud, a hero not only of epic quests, but also of splendidly chaotic banquets. And hey, while the suitors may have tasted the bitterness of humiliation, they certainly provided Odysseus with the best dinner entertainment ever. So sit back and ponder as your eyelids grow heavy, reflecting on how absurd life can often be, all while Odysseus finds the sweetest revenge in restoring hospitality to its rightful grandeur. After all, sometimes the best way to emerge from the trials of life is just to reclaim your personal space and a good night's sleep.
So, as the distant roar of the wine-dark sea fades and the great hall of Ithaca is finally quiet, you can let your own shoulders drop. You have survived the full, unfiltered experience of a Greek myth. The cannibal giants, the mindless bliss of the lotus eaters, the agonizing no-win situation between Scylla and Charybdis, and a full decade of the worst weather a vengeful god could throw at you. We tracked Odysseus not as a god, but as a man, flawed, prone to boasting, incredibly stubborn, and utterly human. He chose the mortal, messy reality of home over the promise of immortality with Calypso, and in that choice, he became something greater than a mere warrior. He became a symbol of Nostos, the profound, aching longing for home that defines us all. He was the hero who endured not through brute strength, but by being the ultimate low-key genius, even if his cleverness often caused more problems than it solved. Now, as you settle deeper into your clean sheets, with a roof that won't be smashed by a cyclops and a pantry that won't be devoured by arrogant suitors, take a moment to be grateful. Think of the simple dignity of Penelope's quiet endurance, and the devastating sincerity of Achilles' regret in the underworld. History may be messy, terrifying, and often completely absurd, but it's also a powerful testament to the sheer, ridiculous stubbornness of the human spirit. Let the final image of this story be one of peace. The storm has passed. The great bow of the hero is silent. The house is restored. The stars over Ithaca are quiet, and the sea god's wrath is, for the moment, finally soothed. Let your mind drift gently away from all the cunning, the monsters, and the wine-dark waves. There are no more long voyages tonight. Just rest. Just sleep. You are home now.